Chapter 2152. Suyu himself felt an inexplicable pressure. The thread of fate on his chest pulsated wildly, showing the injustice of fate. Sinful woman, Suyu murmured. Since the beginning of the god's domain, he had been entangled with a great enemy. Both her own divine nine-dragon cauldron and her master Yunyazi were things she had to obtain. The fight between the two was unavoidable. There was no doubt that the sinful woman was powerful. Few people in the world could compete with her. According to the Flood Dragon Emperor, the sinful woman at her peak was known to be the strongest person under the Emperor. Ordinary path masters should be like ants in her hands, annihilated in a puff of smoke. How confident was he in contending against such an unparalleled powerhouse? Very uncertain. Only by mastering the supreme sword of the Sword Demon could he hope to hurt her. Time passed slowly, and Suyu's heart grew heavy. At the same time, the 1,000 drops of Sword Heart's blood were being consumed at a slow speed, improving his understanding of swordsmanship. Boom! A year later, outside the Western Pure Land, the void was flowing back like water. Something extremely powerful was slowly approaching, causing the void to fluctuate greatly. The sinful woman was approaching. In less than a year, she would arrive at the Western Pure Land. He had only comprehended half of the swordsmanship, and it would take at least 3 years to fully comprehend it. It was too late. Looking at Qin Xianer beside him, Suyu's eyes were gentle. After pondering for a while, he took out the Azura Imperial Seal and sent out the light shield of Buddha's light. The deal is done. Let's go. In a fight to the death, he did not want to involve Qin Xianer. The Xianming Path Master was overjoyed and took the Azura Imperial Seal. This item came too easily. It was said to protect Suyu, but so far, it had only been used in one insignificant battle. He could feel that the Xianming Path Master was doing this for Qin Xianer. Looking at Qin Xianer and then at Suyu, the Xianming Path Master said, "Xianer, this saint is interested in you. What do you think of him?" Qin Xianer glared at him and said, "What are you thinking about?" He actually wanted her again. From the look in his eyes, he couldn't wait to give her to this saint physique. From then on, the saint physique would be tied to the Azura world, right? However, the way Qin Xianer looked at Suyu had changed, and it was no longer as cold and distant as before. "Are you sure you don't need our help?" Qin Xianer asked. He felt that Suyu had given him the Azura Imperial Seal too suddenly. Suyu shook his head. "I alone am enough." As Suyu looked at Qin Xianer, he took out a book with a black cover and handed it to her. "I will give you another gift. If you ever meet the owner of this book again, please thank him for me." Qin Xianer looked at the starry sky heavenly book, her eyes filled with unfamiliarity. She had also forgotten this book. "Do I know the owner of this book?" Qin Xianer asked. Suyu shook his head. "You might not know her, but she definitely knows you." All of Qin Xianer's memories that were related to Suyu were erased, including Xia Jingyu. Therefore, at this moment, she should not remember Xia Jingyu. "If you are fated to meet each other," Suyu said calmly, "they should not have the chance to meet each other in the Great Beginning Realm, right?" "Probably not." "Oh." Qin Xianer nodded and said, "All right, I promise you, for the sake of the Azura Imperial Seal you gave me." As she spoke, she walked away with the Xianming Path Master. After taking 3 steps, she hesitated and turned back to smile at him. "You are actually not that annoying. I hope we will meet again." Suyu replied with a smile, engraving his smiling eyes into his memory. Perhaps this would be the last smile he would ever see. Goodbye. Qin Xianer and the Xianming Path Master left the Holy Land of Western Paradise. After leaving, she caressed the starry sky heavenly book and murmured, "This book seems familiar." Although she had no memory of it, she seemed to have seen it somewhere before. She opened the book subconsciously, and a series of images appeared, recording the details of an ordinary cavern world. "It is very ordinary. Why did he give it to me?" Qin Xianer asked in confusion. She did not know that the moment the starry sky heavenly book was opened, in a faraway civilization, there 9 suns revolved in a unique orbit around the civilization. Beautiful women walked among them with extremely peaceful expressions on their faces. In the center of the civilization, in an extremely luxurious palace, a woman so beautiful that she did not belong to this world sat cross-legged. Her beauty was even more dazzling than the 9 suns, making everything in the world dim in comparison. Sitting on both sides of the palace, strong men of the path master level were sitting cross-legged. They were like stars surrounding the moon, surrounding her at the very top. Suddenly, she opened her eyes, and her face was filled with joy. The starry sky heavenly book has been opened. He is still alive. She was the owner of the starry sky heavenly book, Xia Jingyu. After returning to the goddess clan, her unique identity was immediately known as Empress Yunyan. In the goddess clan, the position of the empress was second only to the goddess clan master, the mighty empress. One could imagine how much importance she was held in. Xia Jingyu's original intention of returning to the goddess clan was to find Su Yu, to see if he was still alive. However, she could not find any trace of Su Yu with the help of the goddess clan's Tao artifacts. It was as if he had disappeared from the world. For such a situation to occur, there were only 2 possibilities. Either he had really died in the pursuit of the sinful lady palace, or there was an invisible power around him that concealed his existence. She hoped that it was the latter, and she believed that it was the latter. Therefore, she had never given up searching for him all these years. Just now, she suddenly sensed that the starry sky heavenly book had been opened. That book was compiled with her heart's blood. Once it was opened, she would definitely sense it. The fact that the starry sky heavenly book was still here meant that Su Yu was probably still alive. She closed her eyes again, and her body released many wonderful lines, weaving them into a wheel. As the wheel spun rapidly, dots of red light appeared. Brother Su Yu is really there. Xia Jingyu's beautiful face was filled with joy, and she covered her mouth with her hand as she cried tears of joy. However, before he could rejoice, the lines began to snap one after another. Xia Jingyu's face froze instantly. The lines of fate are all broken? Those hundreds of lines represented Su Yu's fate. Even if there was one line that was not broken, he could find a way to escape by following the line of fate. However, if all of them were broken, it meant that there was no way he could survive. The 2 path masters were slightly surprised when they saw this. The fate of absolute death? Could it be that the heavenly law has intervened? Even if a person was on his last breath, there would still be 1 or 2 lines of fate left. To have all of them broken, this is really unprecedented. Xia Jingyu's eyes were filled with indignation. She had waited and searched for so many years, but in the end, Su Yu would definitely die. After thinking for a while, she bit her finger. The blood that flowed out turned into a red line, and it circled around the light spot that was about to dim. Empress, please stop. Your divine blood is limited. If you use the method to prolong his life for an insignificant person, you will lose that chance forever. Xia Jingyu's eyes were calm and resolute. To me, in Taichu, nothing is more important than him, including myself. As she spoke, the light spot that was circled by the red line gradually brightened. At the same time, Xia Jingyu closed her eyes, and the starry sky and the civilization of nothingness appeared in her mind. Many scenes were reversed in her eyes, and scenes of the future that were about to happen flashed across her mind. She was looking for the direction that the fate of the bloodline had pointed out. Suddenly, the scene in her mind froze. A woman in red stood on the peak of a mountain, overlooking the vast world of nothingness. The woman in red in the future seemed to have sensed something. She looked back and met Xia Jingyu's eyes. There was a touch of surprise on her face. When Xia Jingyu saw that it was her, a touch of understanding and bitterness flashed across her face. She opened her eyes slowly, and the scene in her mind disappeared. Her face was a little pale because she had lost too much blood. It seemed like a short moment, but in fact, a long time had passed. However, her face was overflowing with joy. Finally, I found a way out. She closed her eyes again, and with a finger on the red spot, she murmured, Brother Suyu, I am very happy that you are still alive. I know you are in trouble, so I found a way out for you. I will wait for you on a peak of a mountain in the heavenly saint civilization. After saying that, she leaned against the bed, as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out. She lost the strength to move. Empress, you have burned the divine flame that you have cultivated for a decade. When the Empress finds out, she will definitely punish you severely. Xiaojingyu closed her eyes tiredly and said, It's better than watching him die. As she said that, she fell into a deep coma. Whether it was finding a way out from the future or sending messages across the void, it had a great impact on her. However, she did not say a word, and it was all over. Who was that man? Was he worthy of such treatment from their Empress? In the holy land of Western Paradise. A month passed. The waves of the void were getting stronger and stronger. They formed waves of the void, beating against the holy land. 2 months passed. The waves had turned into waves, beating against the holy land, making a crashing sound. 3 months passed. The waves had turned into huge waves. The 10th month passed. It was no longer waves outside, but a tsunami of the void. Along the way, countless civilizations had been buried in the tsunami of the void. Even the Holy Land, which was filled with the light of Buddha, was constantly shaking in the tsunami. The light of Buddha flickered as if it was about to be destroyed. The Buddhas had to chant scriptures in unison, blocking the tsunami of the void with their great Buddhist power. Suyu, on the other hand, entered a deep meditation to comprehend the sword technique. So far, he had successfully comprehended 70% of it. He still needed at least half a year. However, he might not have the time. Listening to the tsunami of the outside world, Suyu's heart tightened, and his eyes showed extreme reluctance. Time, what he lacked the most now was time. Just another half a year would be enough. Benefactor, the sinful woman is coming. Maybe you should leave the Holy Land, the future Buddha said calmly, putting his palms together. Even without his reminder, Suyu would leave the Holy Land before the sinful woman arrived. He would never involve the innocent Buddhas. He got up, but the light of Buddha on his body did not dissipate. Chapter 2153. Just as he and the Jiao Dragon Sovereign were about to step out of the Holy Land, a faint sigh came from the body of the Buddha of all lamps. It was the voice of the faceless Buddha. Let me send you off. In an instant, the Buddha's body shone brightly. A giant gate formed by Buddhist light appeared in front of him. Holy body, go. This is all I can do for you, the faceless Buddha said. Suyu bowed deeply. Thank you very much. He and the flood dragon divine warrior stepped inside. All of a sudden, Suyu felt like he was traveling through time and space. When he reappeared, he was already several galaxies away from the Western Holy Land. This should be the territory of the Qingyang mysterious Tao Palace. The Flood Dragon King said indifferently. The faceless Buddha used his remaining soul and the body of the Buddha of all lamps to create the conditions for you. Suyu also understood that it was actually to divert the danger for him. He could have done this a year ago. Why did he only do this when the sinful woman came? He wanted to lure the sinful woman over to buy more time for Suyu. The Western Pure Land would most likely be in trouble. Suyu clenched his fist. His heart was filled with determination as he said, I will definitely kill this evil woman with my sword. They had been hunting Suyu since the ancient god realm. So much so that the Western Holy Lands even had to sacrifice themselves. This debt must be paid with blood. Where should I go? The Flood Dragon Emperor looked into the vast void. For someone like Sinful Woman, a distance of several galaxies could be covered in a few months. Although the world was vast, where could one escape to? When Suyu was about to speak, his mind suddenly shook, and an unbelievable voice reverberated in the depths of his mind. Brother Suyu, I'm very happy that you're still alive. I know you're in trouble, so I've found a way out for you. I'll be waiting for you on a mountain peak in the heavenly saint civilization, Xia Jingyu. It was Xia Jingyu's voice. Had she returned to the goddess clan? What's the situation now? Are you feeling at ease? All of a sudden, thousands of questions appeared in Su Yu's mind, but the only one that he did not care about was the way out that she had pointed out. The familiar voice lingered in his mind, and he couldn't help but think of Xia Jingyu. His anxious heart suddenly became tranquil. Even death was worth it. At least, before she died, Qin Xianer said that she didn't hate him. At least, Xia Jingyu was still alive and waiting for him in the heavenly saint civilization. A relaxed expression appeared on his face as he asked, "Which direction is the heavenly saint civilization?" The Flood Dragon Emperor looked around and pointed in a certain direction. Heading to the heavenly saint civilization? No, it's the opposite direction. Knowing that Xia Jingyu was there, knowing that he would definitely die, how could he go there? Implicate him as well? All right. The Flood Dragon Emperor didn't quite understand why Su Yu was suddenly asking about the heavenly saint civilization. But since he requested to go there, he would naturally do as he was told. Unleashing his domain, the Jiao Dragon King transformed into a golden dragon and tore through the void. 2 months later, Western Pure Land. A boundless tsunami of nothingness swept across the entire Holy Land. Large tracts of holy earth were corroded by the void, continuously being destroyed. The dense Buddhist light swiftly dimmed, as if it was about to collapse. All the Buddhas in the sky were chanting in unison, turning into lines of Sanskrit to resist the impact of the tsunami. Within the Holy Land, the future Buddha stood on the head of the Buddha of 10,000 lamps, looking down at all the Buddhas in the sky, feeling pleased. Once the Buddha of 10,000 lamps left, he would be the Buddha of all Buddhas in the Western Pure Land. However, the top priority now was to deal with the sinful lady. When the sinful lady was angry, the Holy Land collapsed. All the Buddhas in the entire Holy Land were no match for the sinful lady. However, the future Buddha wasn't worried. He had seen the future. He would be fine, and the entire Holy Land would be fine. Only Su Yu would be in trouble. Rumble. All of a sudden, the entire Western Pure Land shook. All the Buddhas fell from the sky, and the Buddhist light in the sky was annihilated. The bright and holy Holy Land was immediately plunged into boundless darkness. The future Buddha left the Holy Land unhurriedly and looked into the distance. He saw that the boundless tsunami was still rushing over, knocking all the Buddhas on the holy mountain back into the Buddha cave, unable to go out. Even the chanting of scriptures had been cut off. Amidst the boundless tsunami, a snow-white dragon whizzed forth. Its powerful aura caused the void to tremble. Above the long dragon stood a female figure radiating with light. It was the sinful lady. Amitabha, the Buddhas of the Holy Land greet the sinful lady. With an overwhelming aura, the sinful lady finally arrived at the Western Pure Land. Her eyes were calm and she spoke clearly. "Where is Su Yu?" "Benefactor Su Yu has left," the future Buddha said. The sinful lady glanced at the Holy Land. Suddenly, the entire Holy Land cracked, and a huge crack appeared. Her gaze was like a solid substance, sweeping through it. Nothing could escape her eyes. "He is indeed not here," the sinful lady said lightly. When she finished speaking, she left on the epoch-making dragon. The future Buddha put his palms together. Amitabha. Everything was as he had seen in the future. The Holy Land would be fine. Only Su Yu would be in trouble. However, just as he was about to turn around, a domain suddenly enveloped the entire Holy Land. Everyone, including the future Buddha, was shrouded in it. "Hand over Su Yu, or I will destroy your Holy Land." The sinful lady had mysteriously appeared in the sky above the holy mountain. Her unique domain of evil fate caused the Holy Land to shake. The future Buddha's heart skipped a beat. What was going on? This scene was not in the future he had seen. He said hurriedly, "As I said, Su Yu has left the Holy Land and is not here." Hearing this, the sinful lady shook her head lightly. Based on my perception, he has been in your holy land for a long time. He left before I came. You must have hidden him. Hand him over. Now, immediately. The future Buddha had a very bad feeling. His eyes gathered Buddha's light, trying desperately to see the future clearly. However, under the cover of the domain of evil fate, everything became blurred, and he could not see clearly at all. There was a trace of panic in his heart, and he no longer had the calmness of having everything under his control. Suyu has indeed left. We Buddhists never lie, the man said. However, the sinful lady was indifferent. I will give you 10 breaths time to hand over Suyu. 10. 9. The future Buddha's heart trembled, and his heart was filled with fear. No, we really did not hide Suyu at this moment. He understood the words of the Buddha of all lamps before he passed away. He could only see others, but he could not see his own future. He should be cautious in his actions. If he had not driven Suyu away, would he still have to worry now? 3, 2, 1. As the sinful lady's last words fell, the future Buddha was filled with despair, and he fled without a care for his image. Chapter 21:54. The sinful girl glanced at it and shot out a gray thread from her left eye, entangling it. With just a slight touch, the future Buddha didn't even have time to scream. His Buddhist light exploded and his body was destroyed. His remaining soul hugged a Taoist Buddhist relic and frantically fled, shouting, "I didn't lie, I really didn't." However, his shouts were of no use. The thread sliced through his soul effortlessly, turning him into a cloud of dust along with the Taoist Lord's Buddhist relic. If he could choose again, he would probably remember the Buddha of 10,000 lamps' last words and be cautious in everything he did. But it was too late to say anything now. After destroying the future Buddha, the sinful girl expressionlessly stared at the sacred land and said, "Regrettably, you chose destruction." Her voice was indifferent as a huge domain descended. Within the sacred land, the Buddhas stood up and chanted. Buddhist relic after relic rose into the sky and emitted unprecedented Buddhist light, forming a huge golden Buddha statue. That was the will of the Buddhas of the Western Pure Land, resisting the destruction from the external enemies. The Buddha statue protected the sacred land under its body and stretched out its huge palms to support the huge domain. Creak! The Buddha statue and the domain collided, creating shocking sparks. Wherever the flames splashed, the void would definitely be burned until it shook endlessly. Useless struggle, the sinful girl said and pressed down with her finger. The domain came crashing down, bending the arms of the Buddha statue. The Buddhas working together were no match for the sinful girl. Finally, the domain descended and obliterated the Buddha statue's head inch by inch until it reached the sky above the sacred land. Creak! The Bodhi tree-shaped sacred land was obliterated. Tens of thousands of Buddhas perished, turning into golden dust. As the sacred land was about to collapse, a loud voice that shook the universe came from within. Amitabha, lay down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha. Almsgiver, please repent. The entire Bodhi tree shrank rapidly. The golden Buddha statue that was the size of a speck of dust kept enlarging until it finally revealed the huge form of the Buddha of 10,000 lamps. He had already passed away, but there was still a trace of the faceless Buddha's remnant soul in his body. Under his control, the Buddha of 10,000 lamps barely emitted a bright Buddhist light. With a single hand, it blocked the domain. All the Buddhas unleashed their powerful Buddha light, which entered the body of the Buddha of myriad lamps. This made the weak Buddhist light much stronger. The sinful lady's eyes were indifferent. A dead person and a dead soul. You are not worthy enough to make me put down my butcher knife. Benefactor, why are you so obsessed? Giving him a chance to live is giving yourself a chance to live. Faceless Buddha said. The sinful maiden shook her head indifferently. I don't need life force. That's because all those who encounter me will die. All of you who block my path will similarly not be able to escape death." As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his fist, and the dominion, which was already unfathomably powerful to begin with, instantly expanded 100-fold. Pucci, the arm of the Buddha of myriad lamps, was instantly destroyed. At the same time, his domain continued to press down on the body of the Buddha of myriad lanterns, slowly extinguishing it. In the entire Western Pure Land, there were 10 Tao Lords, 10,000 half-step Tao Lords, billions of monarchs, and countless overlords. However, even when they joined forces, they were still no match for the sinful girl's domain. In the end, the entire Buddha statue, the entire Western Pure Land, was crushed into dust. The holy land of Buddhism, the Western Pure Land, was reduced to ashes just like that. The sinful lady grabbed a whiff of air from the golden dust that filled the sky. She placed it on her forehead and sensed it. Then, she looked into the distance to the west. "You can't escape." As soon as she said that, Su Yu, who was meditating on his swordsmanship, suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. It was as if he was enduring some unimaginably great force and was about to be crushed. The Western Pure Land is destroyed. Su Yu's face was as gloomy as water. His heart was filled with boundless anger. Sinful lady. The Flood Dragon Emperor also felt uneasy. He said, "We can't keep running like this. We have to use the intergalactic transportation portal of the civilization." He glanced around and said, "The nearest one is the Xianqing civilization, which is a 6-star civilization. I have a clone there. He should be able to help us." 2 months later, the Xianqing civilization was right in front of them. However, a wave of nothingness was set off behind them. Needless to say, it was the sinful lady. She would catch up with them in no more than 10 days. Meanwhile, Su Yu was still at the critical juncture of comprehending his swordsmanship. He descended upon the Xianqing civilization and arrived at the center of the civilization through the connection between their souls. A beautiful woman in a palace gown looked surprised. "Why did you come here at this time?" she asked uneasily as she looked at the rolling nothingness behind them. She was also the fraction soul of the fairy of the 9th heaven. She had occupied the body of the master of the 6-star civilization. "Sect Master Xianqing, right? There's no time to explain. Hurry up and send us to the intergalactic transportation portal." Sect Master Xianqing hesitated. "Could it be that something is chasing you?" The Flood Dragon Emperor did not hide anything. He said in a low voice, "It's the sinful lady." "What? She's chasing you?" Sect Master Xianqing shuddered and hurriedly pushed the Flood Dragon Emperor away. He said, "Leave this place immediately. Don't drag me into this." Who could survive being hunted by the sinful lady? Since he was going to die, why would he drag her into this? The Flood Dragon Emperor gritted his teeth and took out 1/10 of his soul's strength. He said, "What if the sinful lady doesn't kill you?" Sect Master Xianqing looked at the soul, his eyes burning with passion. As the fraction soul of the fairy of the 9th heaven, their souls could be shared. The more souls they had, the more hope they had of surviving the calamity of the apocalypse. After struggling for a moment, Sect Master Xianqing grabbed the soul and stuffed it between his eyebrows. He said, "It's blocked." However, the intergalactic transportation portal still needs 9 days to be filled with energy again. Can you make it in time? The Flood Dragon Emperor's heart sank. He said, "We have no choice but to wait." Looking at Su Yu, who was in seclusion, the Flood Dragon Emperor wanted to give up. After all, the sinful lady was hunting him. Who could guarantee his survival? However, he firmly believed in the words of the undying ancestor demon. His chance to survive the catastrophe was in Su Yu's hands. After arriving at the Xianqing civilization, he waited anxiously while silently observing the tsunami of the nothingness. The tsunami grew stronger day by day. On the 5th day, the entire Xianqing civilization was shaking, bringing endless natural disasters. Countless mortals were buried in the disaster. On the sixth day, the Xianqing civilization began to show signs of collapse. A large amount of the nothingness poured into the civilization, sweeping it away. On the seventh day, the civilization was on the verge of collapse. In the erosion of the nothingness, there were signs of being unable to resist. On the eighth day, the Xianqing civilization was torn apart. Nearly half of the creatures were destroyed. On the ninth day, the entire Xianqing civilization was almost completely destroyed. Lives were lost everywhere. The Xianqing sect master's hair was dripping with blood. The civilization that he had painstakingly built up was destroyed in a day. She regretted her rash choice. Moreover, this was before the sinful lady came. What would the scene be like if the sinful lady really came? However, she had no other choice. She said, "The intergalactic civilization transportation portal is ready. Go now." The Flood Dragon Emperor said, "Let's go together." The Xianqing sect master shook his head and said, "Since we are gambling, let's gamble to the end. Go quickly, don't talk nonsense." "You take care." The Flood Dragon Emperor cupped his fists and stepped into the intergalactic civilization transportation portal. Soon, the long-distance space transportation sent them to another galaxy. As soon as they arrived, the Flood Dragon Emperor used the second intergalactic transportation portal without hesitation to go to a more distant civilization. This happened 3 times. In just 2 days, 10 intergalactic transportation portals were carried out. The Flood Dragon Emperor was exhausted, but he knew that this was far from enough. With the strength of the sinful lady, it wouldn't take long for her to catch up again. On this day, outside the Xianqing civilization, the tsunami swallowed up the entire civilization and buried everything. Only the Xianqing sect master was left. Looking at the Xianqing civilization that had been completely destroyed, he wanted to cry but had no tears. However, what caused his heart to tremble even more was that a white dragon had charged out from the tsunami. The sinful lady stood on the dragon's head and looked down at him calmly. "Those who stand in my way die." As soon as the word "die" fell, the Xianqing sect master was destroyed on the spot, along with the soul of the fairy of the ninth heaven. Staring at Suyu, who had fled further away, the sinful lady took a deep breath. This breath instantly sucked away the atmosphere of the entire galaxy. Countless civilizations were constantly drifting in the galaxy. Some civilizations were directly sucked away for half a galaxy. After taking a breath, the sinful lady opened her mouth and said, "Those who help Suyu die. Those who help Suyu die." The voice rushed out of the galaxy and swept through the surrounding tens of thousands of galaxies. All of the 6-star civilizations heard the sinful lady's stern warning. Countless path masters woke up from their seclusion. Their expressions changed drastically as they ordered the civilization to be sealed. No one was allowed to enter, let alone leave. The Flood Dragon Emperor, who had just arrived at the Purple Cloud civilization, suddenly looked up into the sky. The entire Purple Cloud civilization was sealed. It was impossible to even enter the void, let alone use the intergalactic transportation portal. At the same time, a powerful aura of the Path Master arrived in front of the transportation portal along with many half-path masters. It was the Path Master of this civilization, the Purple Cloud Path Master. He looked at the Flood Dragon Emperor and then at Suyu with a solemn expression. He growled in a low voice, "Since you have come to my civilization, for my own sake, I can only send you to see the sinful lady." It was conceivable that once Suyu was allowed to leave, the sinful lady would definitely vent her anger on the Purple Cloud civilization. By then, the entire civilization would not be able to escape the fate of destruction. The Flood Dragon Emperor pointed at Suyu and said, "He has the holy mortal body. He is the one who can fight against the stone embryo son of heaven and the catastrophe of the end of the world. Please help him, for the sake of the common people." However, the Purple Cloud Path Master shook his head coldly and said, "So what if he has the holy mortal body? Can he fight against the sinful lady now? If I give him to the sinful lady now, I will at least have 100 years to live. If not, I will die right now. I will hold him back. You guys catch Suyu. The Flood Dragon Emperor's eyes were extremely solemn. The sinful lady's deterrence was too strong. Chapter 2155. Suyu, be careful. The Flood Dragon Emperor was extremely anxious as he faced the Purple Cloud Path Master. Several half-path masters followed his orders and rushed forward. However, when they were only 30 feet away from Suyu, a sword sound came from his body. An invisible strand of sword energy transformed into a ray of light that shot out of his pores and pierced through the bodies of several half-step Dowlords in succession. Puff, puff, puff. Their bodies were disintegrated into the most primitive particles. They didn't even have the chance to fight back. The Purple Cloud Path Master's eyelids twitched violently. What kind of sword energy was that? It didn't have the slightest hint of a realm, but it could kill half-path masters in an instant. As a path master, he could clearly sense that after the sword energy entered the body of the half-path masters, it divided into billions of sword energies and disintegrated the whole body. Such a strange and terrifying swordsmanship was truly unheard of. Even the Flood Dragon Emperor's eyelids twitched. What a terrifying sword technique! He was afraid that they would all be seriously injured if they were stabbed by the sword. He was delighted. Suyu's sword technique was really profound. No wonder he wanted to use this sword technique to block the way. Purple Cloud Path Master, get out of here if you don't want to die. Don't stop us. The Flood Dragon Emperor said coldly. The Purple Cloud Path Master clenched his teeth and suddenly slapped his chest, causing his mouth to be full of blood. He yelled, "Get out of here! Don't come to my civilization again!" He was a little afraid of Suyu's sword technique. If he cooperated with the Flood Dragon Emperor, he might die here. The Flood Dragon Emperor couldn't use the intergalactic transportation portal. He could only break through the seal above his head and step into the void. However, in the void, even the Path Master's speed was quite slow. Right at this moment, Suyu, who was comprehending the sword technique, threw out a talisman and said, "Activate it." The Flood Dragon Emperor did as he was told. As a result, a battleship in a mechanical state appeared from the talisman. This is... Even though the Fairy of Nine Heavens was experienced and knowledgeable, she had never seen anything like it. It didn't look like a treasure at all. However, he didn't have time to think about it. He tried to control it through the talisman and was surprised to find that the speed of the battleship was quite amazing. At least, it was much faster than the Pathmaster. After a short while, it successfully crossed a galaxy. Although it wasn't as fast as the intergalactic teleportation formation, it was already the best outcome for them since they were surrounded by enemies. 2 months later, a shocking tsunami swept across the Purple Cloud civilization. The defense outside the civilization was instantly shattered. The calm and composed sinful lady walked out of the tsunami and stared at the Purple Cloud Path Master calmly. "Did Suyu leave from your place?" The Purple Cloud Path Master's heart trembled, and he said, "Sinful woman, Suyu not only had a Path Master to protect him, but the sword technique he practiced had also reached the level of a Path Master. I was no match for them, so they escaped." The sinful woman looked at him coldly, then turned around and rushed toward Suyu. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared beyond a galaxy. The Tao Master of Purple Firmament heaved a long sigh. His mind was still trembling uncontrollably as he murmured softly, "It's too terrifying." Just the invisible pressure that was released was enough to suffocate the Purple Cloud Path Master. It was hard to imagine how devastating it would be if she were to make a move. No one can save that Suyu. Time passed slowly. A month had passed, and Suyu was racing against time to comprehend the sword technique. Finally, he had reached the final juncture. In a few more days, he would be able to master the ultimate essence and completely display the peak sword of the Sword Demon that day. At that time, the sword demon was only a divine warrior of heaven and earth, and he could already hurt the sinful woman with this sword. Now, Su Yu's strength was far superior to that of the sword demon, and the power of this sword would be enhanced to the extreme. Success or failure would depend on this stroke. However, they were extremely pressed for time. No one knew when the void tsunami had appeared behind them. The sinful woman was no more than 10 days away from them. Within 10 days, they had to successfully comprehend the sword technique, or else everything would be over. The first day passed, and the wooden sword in Su Yu's hand began to become transparent. This was a sign that the sword technique was being comprehended. However, the void tsunami was getting stronger and stronger. The second day passed, and the wooden sword became even more transparent. The third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. On this day, the Flood Dragon King found it difficult to fly the warship. Because the entire void world was filled with tsunamis, the warship could not fly smoothly. This invisibly narrowed the distance between the two. On the sixth day, the situation was even more serious. On the seventh day, the warship was extremely difficult to fly, and it was almost impossible to move an inch. On the eighth day, they could feel an aura behind them, and at this moment they had arrived at a strange place. Behind them was the boundless void, and in front of them were densely packed meteorites, like sand on a beach. The Flood Dragon King had a look of disbelief in his eyes. The legendary 7-star civilization continent? A 7-star civilization could no longer be measured by the size of a civilization. Compared to a 7-star civilization, a 6-star civilization and below was as insignificant as a speck of dust. Therefore, a 7-star civilization was also known as a continent civilization. As they fled, they passed through countless civilized galaxies and arrived at the edge of a 7-star civilization. However, this was only the edge. To completely reach the continent, there was still a long way to go. If only we could arrive a little earlier. It's too late now. The Flood Dragon King had a bitter look in his eyes. Among the 7-star civilizations, there were many unimaginable big shot. If they were lucky enough to meet someone who could contend with the sinful woman, they might be able to escape from danger. But it was all too late, because the sinful woman had caught up. On the 9th day, the tsunami behind them could be described as sweeping across the galaxy. Any 6-star civilization that stood in front of it would be destroyed in an instant. Amidst the tsunami, the vague shadow of a giant dragon slowly approached. Roar. Finally, with a deafening dragon roar, the epic-making dragon broke through the layers of tsunami and appeared in front of them. Her whole body exuded a threatening dragon aura. Strong men below the Path Master could only kneel in front of the dragon aura. However, the dragon might of the giant dragon was nothing compared to the dignity emitted by the woman on its head. They could not be compared at all. Su Yu. We finally meet. After 10 years of pursuit, she had finally caught up with Su Yu. Su Yu, who had his eyes closed, slowly opened them, and a deep sense of disappointment flashed across his eyes. In the end, it was too late. Even if it was just one more day, he would have been able to complete the cultivation of the Supreme Sword. Now it was too late to say anything. However, there was no fear in Su Yu's eyes. Instead, they were filled with an indomitable determination. The battle that was bound to come would come after all. In front of the overwhelming tsunami of nothingness, Su Yu's body stood straight, like a long sword that emitted a peerless sharpness. Indeed, we meet again. Su Yu looked at her coldly. The ill-fated relationship between them had lasted for a full 100 years. From the moment he snatched the fragment of the rules from the body of the World Annihilation Dragon, there had been an ill-fated relationship between them. It had not stopped for 100 years. "Do you have any last words to say before you die?" the sinful woman asked. Su Yu looked at the unfathomable light on her face and said lightly, "Show me your face." "Why?" The sinful woman looked calm. Su Yu said, "I want to see the expression on your face before you die." The light on the surface of the sinful woman shook, and her eyes became sharp. She said lightly, "I have heard your last words, but unfortunately, they cannot be fulfilled." After saying that, a gray silk thread shot out from her eyes, entangling Suyu. The Flood Dragon Emperor hesitated for a moment, intending to resist it with his body, but Suyu easily transferred it away with the law of space. Without looking back, he said, "Let's go. If I am still alive, come back and find me." The Flood Dragon Emperor took a deep look at the sinful woman and cupped his fists at Suyu. "If you are still alive, I will find you again." He had tried his best, and the next battle was not something he could participate in. Suyu did not blame him, and was even very grateful to him. Without his help, perhaps he would have been caught by the sinful woman long ago. Risking the threat of death to help him this far was already a great kindness, and he could not ask for more. Seeing the gray thread coming towards him, Suyu snorted and grabbed it with one hand. The 8 great rules condensed in the palm of his hand and turned into an 8-colored giant dragon. With a roar, it bit the gray thread. The beginning of heaven and earth. The giant dragon destroyed itself, and after the 8 great rules were annihilated at the same time, a destructive shock wave was created. The gray thread could easily destroy the Pathmaster, but at this moment, it was destroyed by the shock wave, leaving nothing behind. The epic-making dragon was deeply surprised. The 8 great rules, you have successfully comprehended all of them. Incredible! Between heaven and earth, there were the 8 great rules. Generally speaking, the heavenly law did not allow anyone to successfully comprehend them. Those who succeeded in comprehending any one of them were demons who defied the natural order, and were all accepted into the heavenly law palace. Right now, Suyu had actually comprehended all of the 8 great rules. What a miracle this was! Right now, the 8 great rules were annihilated at the same time, creating a strange shock wave that was even more astonishing. There was a hint of fear in the eyes of the epic-making dragon. That shock wave could only appear at one time. That was the moment of destruction. When the great beginning realm was destroyed, the 8 great rules were destroyed, and the shock wave produced was the first to destroy all the creatures in the world. There were almost no living beings that could resist that shock wave. The power of destruction. The sinful woman's eyes became sharper. Fortunately, they are only rules. If you had turned them into rules, it would have been really dangerous. After saying that, the sinful woman gently pinched 2 fingers forward and crushed the remaining power of destruction. At the same time, she raised her hand, and an incomparably huge domain shrouded above Suyu. All the Buddhas of the entire Western Pure Land joined forces and failed to resist it. In the end, they all ended up being annihilated, let alone Suyu, who was alone. The powerful oppression set off a boundless gust of wind, blowing Suyu's silver hair into the wind. The silver hair covered his face, but it could not hide the eyes that were still burning with an inextinguishable flame in the midst of despair. Before this battle, he had seen Qin Xian'er for the last time. He had received a smile from her, heard Xia Jingyu's voice, and knew that she was still safe. So, what regrets did he have? Even if he died, he had no regrets. The faith of all the heavens be upon me. He crushed all the Buddha beads in the space. There were statues of Suyu inside. They were statues of faith built by everyone in the Zhenlong continent, the Jiuzhou world, the Starry Sky God Realm, and the Ancient God Realm when they worshipped Suyu. There was an unknown amount of pure power of faith gathered inside. Now, with a single command, all the faith was bestowed upon him. Chapter 2156. Faith was also a kind of power. All living beings were willing to worship an invisible existence. Although they were weak, when gathered together, they would naturally become power. Just like the path of Buddhism, it absorbed the faith of heaven and earth to form a supreme Buddha body. Now, Suyu absorbed the power of faith for the first time. Endless power poured into his body. The small world expanded rapidly and exploded to twice its original size, reaching the level of a half-step Daolord. However, this was just the tip of the iceberg. More and more power of faith continued to pour into his body. The world inside finally couldn't bear the pressure of the power of faith and exploded with a loud bang. The heart-wrenching pain spread throughout his body like wildfire. It made one's mental power almost blurry. However, Suyu clenched his teeth and didn't make a sound. He just let the tearing pain spread throughout his body. He knew it was the path transformation of his body. Every inch of skin, every bone, and every drop of blood would be torn apart by the unbearable power of the body. They would be destroyed and rebuilt by the enormous power. The extreme pain spread throughout his body, testing his willpower. Suyu didn't make a sound. He had gone through all kinds of pain, so he wouldn't be afraid of this. The sinful lady shook her head lightly. The path of faith? It's useless. The realm pressed down. When it was about to crush Suyu, the power of faith erupted like a volcano and condensed into a 10,000-foot transparent virtual image behind her. It was filled with the will of the people from Zhenlong, Jiuzhou, the starry sky god realm, and the ancient god realm. As Suyu raised his hand and patted, the virtual image lifted its hand and patted the realm above its head. Boom! Violent sparks splashed everywhere. The domain was slapped by the palm, and the domain that was pressing down suddenly stopped. Even the palm of the sinful lady was hindered, and her whole body shook. It's a very solid power of faith. It's much stronger than the power of faith of Buddhas in the Western Pure Land, the sinful lady said calmly. There were strong and weak belief. The more devout, the more solid the power of faith was. Suyu had blessed the world for generations. He had fought for the world many times and was worshipped by the people. Moreover, the statue of faith designed by Xia Jingyu was different. It absorbed the power of faith and strengthened it, which led to such a strong and solid effect. However, a mantis can never stop a chariot. The sinful lady pressed her palm down suddenly. In the end, the faith virtual image was still constantly being compressed and destroyed bit by the domain. As time passed, the entire virtual image was completely crushed into dust. However, at the same time, Suyu's body finally withstood the transformation of the path, and his body achieved the path. A true Tao Lord had to transform from three sides. The first was the transformation of the body into the Tao. The second was the Tao transformation of the soul. The third was the nomological Taoization. Only one of them could be considered a half-step Tao Lord. At this moment, his body was the first to undergo Taoification. When the domain descended, Suyu's eyes turned cold. He stared at the boundless oppression and stood up abruptly. At the very least, his body wouldn't lack the strength to stand up. If the arms of a mantis are sharp enough, it can still stop the wheels. Suyu said coldly. He took out a pitch-black stone from his hand. It was the Tao stone that had absorbed the poison of the heavenly law. Holding on to the Tao stone, he fiercely collided with the Tao stone that was pressing down. In an instant, the heavenly poison in the Tao stone came into contact with the sinful girl's domain and immediately spread into it. The sinful lady frowned slightly. Poison of the heavenly Tao? She immediately retracted her palm and cut off a part of the domain that had been dyed black in time. In this way, she was able to get rid of the poison of the heavenly law before it was about to erupt. The light on the surface of the sinful lady's body floated slightly, showing that she was not calm. Cutting off her own domain was not a pleasant feeling. You've made some preparations to fight against me. If you were up against an ordinary Pathmaster, you might really have a chance to turn the tables. Unfortunately, you've run into me, the sinful lady said calmly. She no longer displayed the domain. Instead, she gripped the air. An ink-colored ancient sword appeared in her palm. As soon as the sword appeared, the void tsunami, with the sinful lady at the center, rolled in all directions like a meteorite crashing into the sea. Just the aura that was emitted had such an earth-shattering momentum. With a slash of the sword, the Tao stone that contained the poison of the heavenly law was cut into two pieces. What was more terrifying was that the poison of the heavenly law contained in it, which was the great path-devouring law, was annihilated immediately. A Tao artifact. Su Yu's eyes suddenly froze. A Tao artifact was the strongest item of a path master. It was a supreme treasure that was comprehended from the great path. Its power depended on the strength of its owner. It was impossible to measure the strength of the sinful lady's Tao artifact. The Tao stone itself was an existence that had been nourished by the great path. It was indestructible. Moreover, the Tao stone contained the poison of the heavenly law. However, everything was no match for the sinful lady's sword. With a single strike of the sword, all of them were destroyed. The remaining sword energy swept towards Su Yu. His face changed abruptly, and he took out the Tao-destroying pestle from within his body. With a loud rumble, the Tao-destroying pestle was crushed into pieces. However, the sword energy did not weaken in the slightest. It continued to slash towards Su Yu. Su Yu gritted his teeth and took out the cage left behind by the Blood Lotus Tao demon's third mouth. He opened it with the key, and a strong Tao master with boundless ferocious energy was revealed. He remembered the words of the white feather Tao master. No matter what kind of dangerous situation he was in, he had never used the third sealed Tao master. Now, he released it at this critical moment. In the face of the terrifying sword energy, the third Tao master's mind changed drastically. He subconsciously resisted it. The power that erupted from him was much stronger than that of the previous two Tao masters. He believed that even the previous two Tao masters combined wouldn't be a match for him. However, no matter how powerful the Tao master's domain was, it couldn't block the sword energy at all. It was directly obliterated by the sword energy. Su Yu's pupils shrank as he watched. What kind of Tao artifact was that? Even a wisp of the remnant sword energy was so terrifying. Seeing the remnant sword energy slashing towards him, the thread of fate in Su Yu's chest undulated violently, as if it was about to break. He took out the fragment of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo's fruit shell, and threw it away. The sword energy slashed on the fruit shell. A shocking scene occurred. The terrifying sword energy was directly absorbed by the fruit shell like a clay ox entering the sea. The sinful lady was slightly startled. There aren't many things that can block the power of my sinful sword. Apart from the stone embryo son of heaven, there are only the 8 great ancient gods. Staring at the fragment, the sinful lady looked at Su Yu and said calmly, "You seem to have mastered something incredible." Then, she shook her head. "But that's all." She raised the sinful sword high up, then swung it down slowly and powerfully at Su Yu. At that moment, Su Yu vaguely saw a huge crack appear at the top of the world. He also saw his own flame of life extinguish in an instant. An ice-cold feeling of hopelessness and certain death enveloped the depths of his mind. Chapter 2157. Under the sword, Su Yu felt like he was a firefly in the middle of a raging wildfire. He was powerless to resist and had nowhere to run. The power of the sinful sword was not only in its ability to cut through everything, but also in its ability to intimidate souls. Even a path master's soul would be severely impacted by this sword and lose the most basic ability to resist. Su Yu's soul had only been transformed, and it was far inferior to a path master's. At that moment, the bronze plate in his arms suddenly heated up, and a voice that sounded calm but was actually filled with boundless great Tao came from it. "Break!" As soon as the word was spoken, the coldness in Su Yu's heart receded like water. Looking at the sword energy in front of him, he was horrified. How could he not resist? It was the influence of the sinful sword. His face changed drastically, and his heart was filled with deep gratitude towards the Taishu master. This was the first time he had taken the initiative to help him. Suppressing the remaining fear in his heart, Su Yu's eyes were filled with absolute murderous intent. Heavenly Law's Death Eye. He took out the 9-jade spiritual pearl and 10,000 drops of the Path Master's blood, activating it. Seeing the 9-jade spiritual pearl, the sinful girl frowned slightly, feeling that it was vaguely familiar. When she heard Su Yu call it that, the light on the surface of her body shook violently, and she exclaimed, "The Stonebirth Heaven's Death Eye." However, Su Yu had already successfully activated it. Back then, the remnant soul of the White Fox had merely allowed the main body to open its eyes, and it had turned a Path Master into ashes. Now that the 10,000 drops of Path Blood were activated, it should be able to exert a certain amount of power. Crack! All of a sudden, the 9-jade spiritual pearl was like a deep green eye, emitting a mysterious green light. Wherever the green light shone, it was as dark as the netherworld. The epic-making dragon, who was watching the battle from the side, suddenly writhed violently. Half of his body had been found. That half of his body had been turned into powder. Looking at the sinful girl, the light on the surface of her body was rapidly thinning, and layers of powder were pouring out from her body. Her aura at its peak was instantly weakened by half. Cough, cough. The sinful girl coughed softly from within the light, and she coughed out several streaks of blood. Su Yu gasped. She was still not dead? Unforgivable, the sinful woman said slowly. Her voice that was usually incomparably calm revealed traces of anger. She was really angry. An unremarkable little ant had hurt her again and again. At this moment, he actually took out something that could threaten her life and destroyed more than half of her life force. She could not tolerate it. With a low roar, the sinful lady finally swung the sinful sword in her hand. Boundless destruction surged over like a flood. Su Yu took out all of the shell fragments, but he could only absorb less than 1% of the sword energy. The remaining sword chi swept over without any obstruction. Before the sword energy reached him, Su Yu's Taoist body, which had just been condensed, was in constant pain. It was as if it was about to be torn apart again. Even a trace of such sword chi would be fatal. Clenching his teeth, Su Yu's body shook, and the 30-foot small world appeared outside his body. The terrifying sword chi slashed over, but it was as if it had slashed into another world, not causing any damage to the small world. What? The sinful woman could not believe it and asked in surprise, "Is that the true world? Apart from the absolute beginning realm, how could there be another true realm in the world?" The sinful woman's voice became grave, and she sized Su Yu up once again. She then said in a deep voice, "I admit that you aren't an ant, as you even have an immortal realm. However, you are just a slightly larger ant." As her voice fell, she teleported and appeared 30 feet away from Su Yu, and the sinful sword in her hand pierced towards Su Yu's 30-foot small world. The 30-foot small world was successfully penetrated by the sinful sword. It was as if one sword had pierced through the absolute beginning realm and pierced into another sword. The power of the sinful sword was beyond compare. Su Yu's pupils shrank. He had never thought that even the immortal realm could not stop the sinful woman. Alarm bells rang in his head, and Su Yu instantly took out the divine 9-dragon cauldron and placed it in front of him. Ding! With a crisp sound, the divine 9-dragon cauldron successfully blocked the long sword that was piercing towards him. However, the tremendous power of the desolate world transmitted within the sword was still enough to destroy Su Yu in an instant. The sinful woman's eyes were cold, as if she had already seen Su Yu's death. However, right at that moment, a shocking aura came from within the divine 9-dragon cauldron. The strength of the aura was not the least bit weaker than the sinful woman's. The figure of an old man in a gray robe appeared in front of Su Yu. He gently placed his palm on Su Yu's shoulder, and the power that had invaded his body was guided away. Su Yu turned his head to look and was pleasantly surprised. "Master!" The person who had appeared was Yun Yazi, who had been recuperating in the divine 9-dragon cauldron with the help of the divine blood. "I'm sorry, I was at the critical moment of my breakthrough and only came out now," Yun Yazi said apologetically. He then stared at the sinful woman, and with a wave of his sleeves, the The sinful woman was sent flying backward along with her sword. The sinful woman flew backward for thousands of miles before she managed to stabilize herself. Her eyes were filled with solemnity. The ninth palace master of the Heavenly Law Palace, the Heavenly Book Master. You have recovered a lot. Yun Yazi said calmly. Haven't you recovered a lot as well? The 10th Palace Master, the Sinful Woman Master? It turned out that they had both been the previous Palace Masters of the Heavenly Law Palace. Yun Yazi was the 9th generation, and the Sinful Woman was the 10th. The Sinful Woman looked at Yun Yazi coldly. You stole the wordless Heavenly Book and violated the Heavenly Law. Surrender immediately and follow me back to the Heavenly Law Palace to be punished. The wordless Heavenly Book doesn't belong to the Heavenly Law Palace, but to all living beings in the world, Yun Yazi said. Moreover, you and I both understand what the Heavenly Law is. You yourself were suppressed by Prince Xiaoyao, one of the Heavenly Laws. Why must you still work for him? I think capturing me was just an excuse. You really want the wordless Heavenly Book, right? The sinful woman's eyes turned even colder. Since you are unwilling to hand it over, I can only attack you again. Master. Hearing that, Su Yu's heart shook. He had heard Yun Yazi mention that the reason he had almost perished was because he had been betrayed by the person he trusted the most. That person was his disciple. He had never thought that the disciple Yun Yazi was referring to was the sinful woman herself. No wonder the sinful woman had once said that she had received pointers from Yun Yazi. It turned out that they were once master and disciple. It was precisely because of this that Yun Yazi did not guard against her, allowing her to destroy his body and force him to escape into the Tao Tai's cage. In the end, he had almost perished. Now that the truth had been revealed, Su Yu's eyes were filled with hatred. This woman, who seemed calm and indifferent, was actually heartless and vicious. However, all of a sudden, Yun Yazi lightly tapped a finger on Su Yu's head and said, "Calm your mind and comprehend. Leave the rest to me." Yun Yazi took a step forward. A mysterious domain surrounded him, and he held a golden book in his hand. When he flipped open a page, a great path with unfathomable power burst forth from it. The sinful woman's eyes were solemn. She raised the sinful sword and fought fiercely. Su Yu felt as if he was immersed in some kind of enormous torrent. His mind had never been so ethereal before. At that moment, he seemed to know all the mysteries of the world and understood all the secrets of the world. Even the demonic sword technique, which was a hair's breadth away from being comprehended, seemed easy to understand. Su Yu instantly understood that Yun Yazi was buying time for Su Yu to comprehend the final sword technique. Yun Yazi might not be able to hold on for much longer. Chapter 2158. His heart was moved. In reality, his master was definitely still stuck at that critical juncture, unable to succeed. However, when he sensed that Su Yu was in danger, he had no choice but to interrupt his training and show himself to help Su Yu. Yun Yazi had been silently helping him like this ever since they first met. Su Yu suppressed the complicated emotions in his heart and closed his eyes immediately. He made use of the time that Yun Yazi had bought for him to comprehend the final sword technique. On the other side, Yun Yazi was fighting with the rebellious girl. It was unknown what grade of Tao artifact the golden book in Yun Yazi's hand was, but it was filled with a boundless great Tao. Every time he flipped a page, there would be a powerful great Tao. Although the sinful lady's sinful sword possessed astonishing might, as Yun Yazi released more and more great Taos, the sinful lady was at a disadvantage. Puff, finally, under the pressure of over 100 great Taos, the sinful girl was suppressed to the point that she almost didn't have the strength to raise her hand to swing her sword, and she vomited blood from the pressure of the countless great Taos. The bright red Tao blood dyed the void red. The light on the surface of his body flickered, as if it was about to shatter. The sinful lady wiped away the blood at the corner of her lips and looked at the great Taos that were continuously increasing above her head. She said calmly, As expected of the heavenly book Downlord, the Downlord who has grasped the most great Daos in the world. However, it's a pity that you haven't recovered to the heavenly law realm, but I have. The sinful girl's body shone with light, and her aura soared. His cultivation soon reached an unknown and terrifying level. Destroy. She raised the sinful sword again and slashed down viciously. Instantly, the 100 great Daos were destroyed like ripples. Yun Yazi's hand that was flipping through the golden book trembled. His aged body shook violently, and a layer of blurriness appeared on his body. A layer of fluorescent powder was released from his body. That was his soul. He still hadn't found a suitable body, so he was relying on his soul power to fight. The sinful lady looked at her coldly and said, "Master, times have changed. There is no place for you in the absolute beginning realm." As soon as he finished speaking, he swung his sword forward. Yun Yazi immediately flipped open the golden book and activated many great Daos to resist the power of this move. Most of the power of the sword technique was blocked. Only a sliver of remnant sword chi mercilessly penetrated Yun Yazi's body, creating a hole the size of a thumb. His soul was severely injured. But Yun Yazi's expression did not change, and he protected Su Yu behind him tightly. Ignorant struggle. The sinful lady swept her sword over indifferently, causing Yun Yazi to retreat repeatedly. With his current soul state, he might be able to escape if he wanted to. But if he escaped, Su Yu would die a terrible death. Master is still the same as before, trapped by the so-called feelings of camaraderie. Could it be that, after so many years, you still haven't realized how foolish you were back then? The sinful girl stabbed her sword forward. Yun Yazi used the golden letter to block the attack. With a calm expression, he said, "If a person is heartless in life, how is he different from a plant? Unnecessary feelings. Ever since you took me in as your disciple, you've been guiding me to value friendship and righteousness. Unfortunately, I hate the so-called friendship the most. A person exists in this world. As long as he has enough strength, he can have anything." Yun Yazi sighed. "You still don't understand. Strength can only protect and destroy. It can never obtain some precious things." He pointed to his heart. The sinful lady shook her head and pointed her sword at the golden letter, shattering Yun Yazi's soul into pieces. It was on the verge of dispersing. "Can someone like you get it?" The sinful lady pointed her sword at Yun Yazi's chest. With the power of the sinful sword, Yun Yazi would die without a doubt. However, she did not do so. Instead, she looked at Su Yu and said in a complicated tone, "He is the person you want to protect. Just like back then, when I was a little girl being hunted by countless strong men, you tried your best to protect me, didn't you? She was not born so powerful. She was a person without parents, no background, and no memories. From the moment she was born, she was hunted by people for no reason. This continued for over 100 years. Every single day was spent trembling with fear and unease. Until one day she met Yun Yazi. He stroked her head and brought her back to the heavenly law palace. He taught her the martial path and how to be a person. However, she only showed unimaginable talent in the martial path and became the fastest person to break through to the path master level in the great beginning realm. However, she never learned how to be a person seriously. From the beginning to the end, no matter how he taught her, she seemed to be born lacking something. She could never understand what Yun Yazi meant by how to be a person. Other than cultivation, there was nothing else she could do. Until one day, she found that her cultivation had reached a bottleneck and could not advance any further. At that time, her cultivation was close to Yun Yazi's and was only below him. When she found out that the Heavenly Law Palace had a wordless heavenly book, she ignored Yun Yazi and forced herself to read it. In the end, Yun Yazi betrayed the Heavenly Law Palace with the wordless heavenly book, shocking the great beginning realm. The sinful lady, who was second only to Yun Yazi, naturally became the 10th palace master. She took the initiative to hunt Yun Yazi down and snatch the wordless heavenly book, the only thing that could improve her strength. In the end, the two of them chased her to the Sea of Constellations. The sinful lady pretended that she was no longer obsessed with the wordless heavenly book, gained Yun Yazi's trust, and killed him. However, just as she was about to take the wordless heavenly book, the oldest Tao Tai in the world passed by and swallowed both of them. It turned out that everything was a trap set up by Emperor Xiaoyao. Not only did he make Yun Yazi betray the Heavenly Law Palace, but he also made the sinful lady hunt Yun Yazi down personally. In the end, both of them were sent into the Tao Tai's cage to be suppressed forever. Now, the two of them were merely continuing the unfinished scene from billions of years ago. You still remember? I thought you had forgotten everything. Yun Yazi's voice was weak. The sinful lady said calmly, "How can I forget? After all, you are the only person in the great beginning realm, in the world, and in my life who treats me well." So, the sinful lady looked at Yun Yazi. "Give me the wordless heavenly book. In exchange, I will let you live." Yun Yazi was silent for a long time. He looked up at the sky and sighed. "If I really give you the wordless heavenly book, you will regret it." The sinful lady frowned slightly. "Can you tell me why you would rather betray the wordless heavenly book than let me take a look at it?" The grudge between the two of them had lasted for countless years because of a book. This had always been a doubt in the sinful lady's heart. Was Yun Yazi that afraid of her becoming stronger? Yun Yazi stood up slowly and said, "I can't." The sinful lady's eyes turned cold. She pointed at Suyu. "What about him? Did you pass the wordless heavenly book to him?" "Yes," Yun Yazi said. Boom. The sinful lady suddenly slashed at the void beside her with her sword, creating a huge crack. She laughed angrily. "You talk about friendship, but what happened in the end? You would rather die than hand over the wordless heavenly book to me. Instead, you gave it to a small fry that you knew less than 100 years ago. Master, is this your so-called camaraderie?" Yun Yazi said, "No matter what you say, I cannot give you the wordless heavenly book." Chapter 2159. Fine. Since you won't give it to me, I'll kill him first. Let's see if you'll give it to me. The sinful woman snorted coldly. She bypassed Yun Yazi and slashed at Suyu, who was still in the midst of comprehension. Yun Yazi tossed the golden book into the air, releasing a golden light barrier that enveloped the sinful woman within, blocking her path. Humph! The sinful woman looked up at the golden book. Without thinking, she slashed at the golden book. Creak! A long crack appeared on the golden book, as if it was about to break into two halves. The golden book, a Tao artifact, had been shattered. Yun Yazi's soul suddenly evaporated like steam. The Tao artifact had been damaged, and Yun Yazi had been gravely injured. The sinful woman did not even look at him. She thrust her sword at Su Yu's chest. With the power of the sinful sword, any living creature that was stabbed would undoubtedly die. However, at that moment, Yun Yazi's soul suddenly shot over, condensing into a soul shield in front of Su Yu. Poof! The sinful sword pierced through Yun Yazi's body without any resistance. A massive amount of sinful fate rushed into his body, continuously eroding and destroying his soul. A thick will of death rippled out. The sinful woman was stunned. The evil energy beside her grew heavier. "You'd rather die for him, wouldn't you?" Yun Yazi's soul was like a dissipating illusory shadow, dispersing layer by layer. He turned to look at Suyu, who was in the midst of comprehension, and revealed a benevolent smile. "I've never done anything for you. Finally, there's a chance." Live well, as soon as he finished speaking, his entire being dissipated. His soul had been completely destroyed. Yun Yazi had completely fallen. The sinful woman looked at the soul fragments that filled the sky. Sensing the last bit of Yun Yazi's aura vanishing from the world, she stood there, motionless. She clutched at her chest, muttering in confusion, "Why does my chest feel so uncomfortable? Am I hurt?" After being stunned for a long time, she lowered her head to look at Suyu. An unprecedented murderous intent welled up in her. Die. The sinful sword was no longer obstructed, and it slashed down. Poof, fresh blood flowed, covering half the sky. However, it did not strike Suyu's vital parts, but his raised palm. His tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. While he was comprehending the swordsmanship, he suddenly felt a great sadness, as if he had lost something. When he opened his eyes, he saw the last wisp of Yun Yazi's soul turning into fluorescent light and disappearing from the world. He couldn't believe that Yun Yazi had died just like that. The abyss of Wudong, the lonely and lonely reunion. His benevolence when imparting the heavens' sun gazing at air. How many times had he silently helped without saying a word? Every scene was like a clear spring, like a pearl that had been washed and glowed with a clear luster. Suyu could not believe it, and he was even more unwilling to believe that Yun Yazi had died. The teacher who had accompanied him through so many trials and tribulations, the kind old man who had given him such a great opportunity, had died just like that? Master! Suyu bellowed in a low voice, while great grief and indignation welled up in his heart. What had Master done wrong in his life? Why wouldn't she let him off? He had struggled to recover from a wisp of remnant soul. He definitely had many unfulfilled wishes and was unwilling to leave with the wind. Why did this sinful girl's sword insist on burying everything? What right did she have? Just because she was invincible, she could do whatever she wanted? Sin. Woman, you deserve to die. Suyu only felt that his chest was burning with endless raging flames, as if it was about to melt him. She had chased after him, and Suyu only felt anger, not hatred. But why did she want to kill Yun Yazi as well? Creak. An ancient oil lamp appeared silently in front of his chest. The oil lamp emitted a gentle light, not changing in the face of the sinful girl's shocking aura. Suyu's hair and eyes were golden, and the skin on his body had turned into a 9-colored liquid that flowed slowly. He had transformed from a human into an inhuman existence in the blink of an eye. The sinful girl stared at Suyu, whose aura had become completely different. Her eyes were filled with astonishment. What is this thing? Get lost! Suyu grabbed the sinful sword in his hand with one hand, while his other hand clenched into a fist and punched toward her head. The sinful girl's expression was indifferent, and a layer of domain naturally blocked in front of her. The struggle of an ant, Pow, however, her domain was instantly shattered by the punch, which landed directly on her face. The boundless, enormous force sent her flying several civilizations away. Only when she crashed into an uninhabited civilization and completely smashed it did she stop her body's momentum. She rubbed her swollen and painful face and looked at the end of the nothingness in surprise, at a world that was dyed with 9 colors. A figure of 9 colors stood on the ground, his golden hair fluttering in the wind. That strange form was something she had never seen before. Startled, the sinful girl suddenly remembered the 9-colored light she had seen before. Her pupils shrank, and she said, "Could it be that you are the one who awakened the sacred mortal body?" The only reply he got was a single word from Suyu. Die. Creak. 2 beams of golden light in his eyes suddenly penetrated the nothingness, penetrating the sinful girl's body from front to back. Ah! The sinful girl didn't even have time to react before her body was penetrated by the golden beam of light. The wound was charred. A large amount of blood sprayed out, and the sinful girl's eyes were filled with panic. It was rumored that the strength of the sacred body differed from person to person. Some awakened sacred bodies had the strength of an ordinary path master, but some could shake the stone-born Son of Heaven. Shake the supreme sacred mountain. Aunt, don't be arrogant. The sinful sword in the hand of the sinful girl stabbed forward. The power of the sword was several times stronger because of the eruption of her real cultivation. Zhaoshi. The royal dragon's sword appeared in Suyu's palm, and he drew a plain and unadorned trajectory in midair. This sword was the last sword of the sword demon before his death. It gathered all of his swordsmanship, as well as Yun Yazi's comprehension, and reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship, surpassing the limits of the path. Ding! With a soft sound, the sinful sword flew out of the sinful girl's hand and into the sky. The royal dragon's sword pierced through the sinful girl's chest without any obstruction. The unbreakable body of the sinful girl, who was extraordinarily powerful, had her heart pierced by a sword just like that. However, she didn't die. Within her shattered heart, an unparalleled sinful fate gushed out, repairing her heart. She took the opportunity to retreat, keeping a safe distance. She stared at the royal dragon sword in Su Yu's hand with deep fear in her eyes. That sword could be fatal to her. Coupled with the sacred body state, a sense of danger arose spontaneously. Human, I admit that you are very strong, but as long as you hand over the wordless heavenly book, we can be friends. Puff! Suddenly, Su Yu reached out his palm and clenched it in the direction of the sinful girl. All of a sudden, the sinful girl felt as if she was being squeezed by the entire real world. Her whole body was in excruciating pain, and her internal organs were severely injured. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Before she could come to her senses, a 9-colored figure swept in front of her at an incredible speed, and a sword pierced through her throat. The sinful girl's heart thumped wildly. Before her head was cut off, she immediately used a secret technique to escape. She turned around and jumped onto the head of the epic-making dragon, who had just recovered, and said, "Go!" Chapter 2160. The epic-making dragon turned and ran at an amazing speed. Its heart was beating wildly. At this moment, the pressure that Su Yu exuded was no less than that of the wizard ancestor who had sealed it. Every move he made had the power to shake the world. It never dreamed that the little ant of the past had become a holy body and mastered supreme sword techniques in 100 years. His strength had reached an unimaginable level. At this moment, it was like a stray dog, fleeing with its defeated master. Su Yu, I don't want it anymore. Let's stop here, how about that? The sinful girl spoke to Su Yu from hundreds of millions of miles away as she fled. It's too late, Su Yu said hoarsely. His voice was filled with deep hatred that could not be concealed. Yun Yazi was dead. His master, who had accompanied him for so many years, had died just like that. How could he give up now? Unless he was dead. As he spoke, he stabbed with his sword from hundreds of millions of miles away. Suddenly, the sinful girl's heart was pierced by the sword even though it was so far away. The sinful girl immediately covered her chest with her hand. Her broken heart was successfully repaired by the sinful fate. Her eyes were filled with fear and deep unwillingness. I don't want to die. I want to continue to practice martial arts and become an existence that no one can bully. The sinful girl roared in her heart and drove the epic-making dragon to escape. However, she had just escaped a short distance when suddenly, a 9-colored palm suddenly grabbed her from behind. It was the giant palm of life condensed by Su Yu's holy body. It was similar to the palm of the heavenly law and contained infinite power. As the palm came, the void suddenly rolled back, causing the epic-making dragon to stagger and continue to roll in the turbulent tsunami. The sinful girl fell from its head and decisively gave up on the epic-making dragon. She transformed into 10 sinful girls and fled in 10 directions. The giant 9-colored palm grabbed and pressed the epic-making dragon under its palm. At this moment it was like an earthworm, making a futile struggle. Su Yu grabbed it with his palm and threw it into the 9-jade spiritual pearl. Then, he looked up at the sky. Above the sky, an incomparably huge eye immediately appeared. It was somewhat similar to the heavenly eye of the past. However, the difference was that this eye was overflowing with 9 colors, gathered the 8 great rules, and contained the power of the holy body. The 9-colored eye overlooked the world, and the figures of the 10 sinful girls who were fleeing quickly came into view. Chi, the 9-colored eye, suddenly shot out 10 beams of 9-colored light, each of which shot toward one of the evil women. Among them, 9 of the evil women were instantly annihilated. Only one of the sinful women spat out a large amount of blood after being hit, and then she continued to run. Obviously, that was the true body of the sinful woman. She tried to escape, but Suyu, who had a holy body, wasn't weak. She couldn't increase the distance between them. The sinful lady was very anxious. When she passed by a star system civilization, she broke through the surface defense of the civilization without saying anything and directly entered inside, using the intergalactic civilization teleportation formation. After a while, she disappeared from the galaxy. Suyu took a deep breath and said coldly, "Those who protect the sinful woman must die." The warning that contained the power of the sacred mortal body resounded throughout all the galaxies. The voice was filled with killing intent, causing one to tremble with fear. All the star systems had sealed the interstar system teleportation formation. Even if the sinful woman forcefully barged into the civilization, the teleportation formation could not be used. The sinful woman was furious and had no choice but to flee into the void again. It was illusory, but there was no place for him to stay. Everywhere she went, the teleportation formations were all blocked. Suyu, on the other hand, was in hot pursuit, bringing with him a series of void tsunamis, rolling up countless meteorites, and leaving behind streaks of 9-colored light. He sped through the universe to hunt down the sinful woman. In many civilizations, countless living beings stared at this scene with deep shock in their eyes. The sacred body is hunting down the sinful woman. The sacred body of the human clan, the heavenly law sinful woman. Oh my God, the sacred body is too terrifying. The power of one person is chasing the sinful woman until she has nowhere to run. Everywhere he went, there was no civilization that wasn't shaken up. A few months later, in the Purple Cloud civilization, the sinful woman found that the intergalactic teleportation formation of the Purple Cloud civilization was not blocked. She was about to land and use the teleportation formation to increase the distance. All of a sudden, a 9-colored palm fell from the sky, wiping out the entire Purple Cloud civilization along with the teleportation formation. In the civilization, the screams of the Purple Cloud Path Master could still be heard. The sinful woman missed her target. She turned around and glared at Suyu viciously. "Are you really going to kill me? You'd better leave a way out for yourself." Suyu waved his hand and the Tianyi bow appeared in his palm. This bow, which could not be fully drawn before, was now fully drawn for the first time in the state of the sacred body. A golden stream of light turned into an arrow, which was knocked on the bow. Swoosh! As soon as the arrow was shot, the entire civilization's galaxy began to spin wildly. As the arrow spun rapidly, many of the Path Masters were shocked. Boom! The sinful woman was shot in the back of the head by an arrow. The Tianyi arrow penetrated her skull and returned with her left eyeball. Ah! The sinful woman covered her left eye, which was bleeding profusely, and roared with resentment, "Suyu! I won't let you go!" As she fled, she screamed shrilly like a malicious ghost. Suyu's face was cold as he continued to chase after her. 1 month passed. 2 months passed. Half a year passed. When he passed by the Western Paradise, it had been reduced to ruins. All the Buddhas had turned into scattered Buddha's light, which remained in the vicinity. The once prosperous Buddhist Holy Land was left with silent ruins. At that moment, a figure fled from the sky of the Western Paradise in a panic. It was the insufferably arrogant sinful woman who destroyed the Western Paradise in the past. Behind her, a 9-colored figure chased after her, leaving a 9-colored afterimage between heaven and earth. A few years later, in the demon realm, the sinful woman whistled past, causing a huge vibration in the void, which almost destroyed the demon realm. Fortunately, the sacred body that chased after her suppressed the void. 10 years later, in the Tsongjing Ecliptic Palace civilization, the sinful woman disappeared in a flash, sweeping up a strong void, which made the Ecliptic Palace seem to be in imminent danger. Following closely behind was the saintly physique of the human tribe, who launched a desperate chase to kill him. 1 month later, in the Sea of Constellations, the sinful woman had nowhere to run. After more than a decade of fleeing, she had exhausted everything she had, and it was only with her willpower that she managed to persist until today. However, Su Yu's desire to kill her did not die. For many years, he did not stop chasing after her, just like how she had chased after Su Yu in the past. Until today, he had chased the evil girl until she had nowhere to go. Unknowingly, she had escaped to the Sea of Constellations. She had escaped to the starting point. Su Yu landed and looked down at the sinful woman condescendingly. Many years had passed, but the murderous intent in his eyes did not diminish, but increased. Su Yu, do you really want to fight to the death? You should know that the longer you maintain the sacred body state, the greater the side effects on your body. It is not too late to stop now. If you continue to hold on, even if you kill me, you will not have a good ending. Su Yu's eyes were indifferent as he said, as long as you die, everything will be worth it. Slowly pulling out the royal dragon sword, Su Yu pointed at her head and said, "Say goodbye, sinful woman." Chapter 2161. As he finished speaking, the ultimate swordsmanship pierced through everything and pierced into her heart. The swordsmanship was extremely mysterious, and it shattered her heart. However, as her heart was destroyed, the evil fate in her body gathered into another heart. Su Yu was destroyed again, and the heart was regenerated. In this manner, it was impossible to kill them all. There was no way to kill them all. Ha ha ha! The sinful lady laughed heartily. Do you think you can kill me? With that swordsmanship of yours? It can only hurt me, but it can't kill me. Indeed, it seemed that the sword could only hurt her. Is that so? If that's the case, why did you run away for 10 years? Su Yu shook his head and shattered another heart with his sword. Is it because the number of hearts you can regenerate is limited? The sinful lady's laughing face suddenly froze, and her voice became shrill. Su Yu, what good will it do you if I die? As long as you stop now, I can give you anything you want. Su Yu said indifferently, I want our teacher to come back alive. Can you do that? Apart from that, I can do anything, the sinful lady said. Su Yu shook his head. I don't care about anything else. The sinful lady clenched her teeth. Suddenly, the misty light on the surface of her body dispersed without warning, revealing a breathtakingly beautiful face. It was a beauty that did not belong to this world, and nothing in this world could compete with it. Then, do you not care about me? The sinful lady asked. Su Yu was startled, and he stared at that face without blinking. No matter how beautiful a face was in this world, Su Yu would not look at it more than once, nor would he miss it for even a moment. Only one person was an exception. Xia Jingyu. The face in front of him was Xia Jingyu. Are you sure you want to kill me, brother Su Yu? The sinful lady had a faint smile on her face, as if she had seen through Su Yu's heart. For so many years, Su Yu had worked hard and struggled to become stronger, all for Xia Jingyu. He had never thought that he would have the same face as his sweetheart. Puff. However, the sinful lady's smile froze when Su Yu's sword pierced another heart. The sinful lady groaned in pain and asked blankly, Why? Why are you so determined to kill me? Su Yu's gaze became cold again, and he calmly said, You aren't Xia Jingyu, so why can't you be cruel? He had seen the same face long ago in the space-time reversal. It was a woman in a red robe. Her name was Qin Yun. The fact that the sinful lady had the same face was both unexpected and reasonable. Yun Yazi had once said that Su Yu would not kill the sinful woman. At that time, he didn't understand. Now that he had seen the true face of the sinful woman, everything could be explained. That was because Yun Yazi knew that the sinful girl was exactly the same as Xia Jingyu. Thus, he concluded that he would not kill the sinful girl. However, as time passed, Su Yu was no longer the Su Yu of the past. No matter how similar their appearances were, it did not change the fact that she had killed Yunyazi with her own hands. Ah! Su Yu. If you kill me, you won't have a good ending either. The sinful lady palace and the temple of heaven won't let you off. The sinful lady gripped the blade and struggled desperately. It was as if he could no longer withstand another sword strike. She only had one heart left. Su Yu replied indifferently, I'm not even afraid of the holy mountain, let alone the sinful lady palace and the heavenly law palace. As soon as he finished speaking, he thrust his sword forward. The last heart of the sinful woman was completely destroyed. With an endless cry of indignation, the vitality of the sinful woman's body dissipated like smoke. What was slightly strange was that his body did not sink, but gradually dissipated. In the end, all that was left was a shining stone. The soul of the sinful woman was attached to the stone, staring at Su Yu with hatred. I curse you to die a horrible death. As she spoke, the sinful woman grabbed the stone, turned around, and fled. Su Yu did not say a word as he chased after her with his sword. However, right at that moment, an enormous palm suddenly descended from the sky, grabbing the sinful woman and the stone. The palm was filled with the intense aura of the heavenly law. The sinful woman screamed miserably as she was pressed under the palm, unable to move. Soon after, the palm turned into a feminine man dressed in a silver robe. He had an arrogant look on his face, and he was holding the soul of the sinful woman and the stone in his palm. Tsk, what a touching scene! Senior sister and junior brother killing each other, both sides suffering. The feminine man said in an ambiguous tone. Su Yu stared at him coldly. His heart, which had been silent for a long time, was beating wildly, and an incomparable sense of danger arose in his heart. That feeling was comparable to the feeling when the sinful woman was chasing after him. There was a suffocating gap between him and the feminine man. Xiaoyao Heaven. The sinful woman said sternly, It's you again. You have been waiting in the dark until now, haven't you? Xiaoyao Heaven? This was the first time someone had been addressed as the emperor in the great beginning realm. There was only one place where the people were qualified to be addressed as the emperor. That was the holy mountain, the stone emperor. Xiaoyao Heaven smiled mockingly. You can say that. After all, it would be somewhat troublesome to deal with you personally. It would be best if I could do it for someone else. The sinful woman's eyes were filled with monstrous hatred. Wasn't it enough that you framed me and imprisoned me in the Tao Tai cage? Now you are still plotting against me. What kind of hatred do I have against you? Xiaoyao Heaven said in an ambiguous tone. Hatred, of course not. However, you are the reincarnation of the third emperor of our holy mountain, the Mirror Flower Emperor. The sinful woman's pupils shrank. The Mirror Flower Emperor? The stone emperor who was beaten off the holy mountain by the human ancestor and smashed into pieces? I am his reincarnation? Hee, what else do you think? Xiaoyao Heaven grabbed the shining stone in his palm. Thanks to your many years of cultivation, this part of the Mirror Flower Emperor's body has recovered to its original state. You just need to use your soul to baptize this stone. No. You are lying. This is mine. It's mine. She had been pursuing martial arts all her life. For this, she was heartless. Even her master turned against her because of a wordless heavenly book and did something like betraying her master and killing her ancestor. How could she accept that she had been working for someone else all her life? Haha, nonsense. Your master, Yunyazi, didn't want you to know the truth, so he stopped you from reading the wordless heavenly book. Xiaoyao Heaven laughed. The sinful woman shook her head. What does it have to do with the wordless heavenly book? That should be a profound Taoist art. Xiaoyao Heaven revealed a mocking expression. Tao technique? Won't you know when I show it to you? He waved his hand, and a wordless heavenly book appeared in front of the sinful woman. Take a look. This is the wordless heavenly book you have been waiting for. The sinful woman couldn't believe that the wordless heavenly book that she had been pursuing all her life was right in front of her. She flipped it open. She knew all the words in the heavenly book, but she couldn't believe the content of the words. The content of the wordless heavenly book was about the secrets of heaven and earth. The people of chaos occupied the holy mountain and ruled the absolute beginning realm. They destroyed and restarted eras again and again. It even described the names and origins of the 8 stone emperor. Among them, the mirror flower emperor was shattered by the human ancestor into pieces. The 4 pieces of her body fell into the void and each transformed into a living being. The sinful woman was one of them. Chapter 2162. When sinful girl cultivated to the end, heavenly Prince Mirrorflower's body would absorb her cultivation and soul, awakening her. It could be said that a living being formed from a body was nothing more than a vessel. It nourished the body within the container and constantly recovered. When it recovered to a certain stage, it would devour the container along with it. Vessels, for the rest of their lives, would only serve to benefit others. The sinful girl stared blankly, not daring to believe her own eyes. The wordless heavenly book that she had been pursuing all her life was only telling a secret, telling the story of her life. It was no wonder that she didn't have any memories of the first half of her life before she met Unyazi. It was no wonder that her cultivation speed was so strange that it far surpassed all the other heaven's favorites of this generation. She was just a vessel for heavenly Prince Mirrorflower. Emperor Xiao Yao stared at the sinful lady's expression and revealed a pitiful smile. What a joke! You have been treating the wordless heavenly book as the best Taoist magic in the world all your life, but you don't know that it is actually the mystery of your birth. What's even more laughable is that your master, Unyazi, took this book away because he didn't want you to know that you were a vessel. He knew that once you knew the truth, your mind would definitely suffer an unimaginable destructive blow. He has always been protecting you, loving you, but you've tried to kill him twice, and the last time, you really killed him. Sad, pitiful, hateful. It's no wonder that Su Yu is chasing after you relentlessly. Even I, a bystander, can't help but want to kill you to vent my hatred. When she understood the truth behind Unyazi's theft of the wordless heavenly book, the sinful girl's eyes widened and her heart trembled unceasingly. As it turned out, Unyazi had been protecting him from the very beginning. Even though she had betrayed him once, destroyed his Tao body, and turned him into ashes. Even 10 years ago, when she held a sword to his chest and forced him to hand over the wordless heavenly book, he still refused. Because he had always wanted to protect her. Until the end of his life, until he died in her hands, he still had no regret. She clutched her chest tightly. Just like when Unyazi died, she felt an immense pain in her chest. Droplets of soul tears rolled down from his eyes and turned into soul crystals that drifted down. The evil girl wiped the corner of her eyes with the back of her hand. Her moist eyes were filled with confusion. Am I hurt? Why are you crying? She was heartless and unrighteous, so she shouldn't have cried. But right now, she was crying for no reason. Xiao Yao, son of heaven, said calmly, unfortunately, the stone that created you lacks emotions. Therefore, you have never understood the meaning of love and righteousness. You only know how to cultivate. Right now, you should be sobbing as a vessel. The stone itself would not cry. Only the vessel would cry. Alright, you've seen enough of the love drama. It's time for you to return to your destiny. Emperor Xiao Yao held the stone in his hand and golden lines immediately appeared on it. The rock seemed to be breathing, constantly expanding and contracting. It seemed to have come to life. The sinful woman's powerful soul was continuously disintegrating, turning into soul fluorescence that was absorbed by the stone. The sinful girl came back to her senses but did not resist. Instead, she took a deep look at the wordless heavenly book. Then, she looked at Su Yu and said, Junior brother, I have sinned greatly. I don't ask for your forgiveness, but I beg you to bring this back to the sinful lady palace. A crystal-like object slowly flew out from between her eyebrows. It was completely golden in color. That was Sinful Girl's soul crystal, the essence of her soul. Emperor Xiao Yao shook his head with a smile. You really don't take me seriously. You want to give the soul crystal to someone else right in front of me? Hee. He clenched his fist and was about to push the soul crystal back. However, the soul crystal suddenly became boiling hot. Emperor Xiao Yao loosened his grip in pain. Your soul has been cultivated to the top tier? When did that happen? Emperor Xiao Yao was shocked. Impossible. Every move of the sinful girl was under surveillance. Whatever cultivation she had attained and what progress her soul had made, it was all within his expectations. When did her soul surpass the Path Master level? The sinful girl said coldly, You don't need to know. Emperor Xiao Yao was extremely frustrated. He yelled, I get it now. It's Tao Tai. It's that old thing, Tao Tai. You had a great battle with him, and he lost a part of his soul to you, right? The sinful girl turned a deaf ear to him. She looked at Suyu, who didn't move at all. She said, My master once healed the injury of my soul. Therefore, there is a wisp of my master's soul in my soul. If you can find a way to strengthen this wisp of soul, maybe you can resurrect my master. However, my soul crystal core is indestructible. There is almost nothing in the world that can destroy it. Only in the Sinful Lady Palace, where I have nurtured the sinful lotus for an era, can this soul crystal core be broken down and Master's wisp of soul be separated. Upon hearing that, Su Yu's eyes brightened. He grabbed the soul crystal from afar. Yun Yazi's remnant soul is still in it? With his current soul attainments, he immediately understood that Yun Yazi still had hope of resurrection. He stared at the sinful girl deeply. The hatred in his heart hadn't dissipated yet. However, there was now a hint of sympathy. In the end, she was a vessel that made a wedding dress for someone else. She didn't get anything. Moreover, before her death, she finally understood Yun Yazi's difficulties and repented. Perhaps this kind of ending was the best for her, right? I will, Suyu said. The sinful girl smiled for the first time. Then, her body started to blur. Xiaoyao, son of heaven's gaze, followed the soul crystal and landed on Suyu. He laughed mockingly. I almost forgot about you, the little holy body. The main purpose of this time was actually for you. Retrieving the stone ahead of time was actually a matter of fate. Seeing that you have the soul crystal, I will send you on your way, Xiaoyao, son of heaven said indifferently. He raised his finger and pointed at Suyu. At this moment, Suyu felt like he was being crushed by the world when he was immortal. The indescribable suffocating feeling made Suyu feel like he had returned to the ancient dream Forbidden Lands. He felt grief, indignation, and helplessness when the heavenly law took away Qin Xian'er's memories. After 20 years, was he still feeling that powerless? No. Why did he light up the oil lamp and awaken the holy body? Wasn't it to declare war on the holy mountain and the stone-birth son of heaven? Get lost! Suyu roared. The 9-colored light that flowed on the surface of his body formed a radiating shape, like rolling waves. The suffocating feeling of oppression dissipated instantly. Xiaoyao, son of heaven's fingertips were charred. You! Xiaoyao, son of heaven's eyes narrowed. In this world, the only thing that could kill the stone-birth son of heaven was the holy body of a mortal. The 9-colored light of the holy body had infinite lethality for the stone-birth son of heaven. Things are different now. Suyu raised his eyes, which were filled with cold, dazzling light. In your eyes, I may still be an ant, but I am an ant that cannot be humiliated. The 9-colored light on the surface of his body was burning like flames. His long golden hair was like a long river, extending infinitely and curling toward Xiaoyao, son of heaven. Damn it! Xiaoyao, son of heaven seemed to be extremely afraid of the 9-colored light and dodged it. The long golden hair pursued him closely. It turned into a giant golden palm and a giant dragon, flashing as it chased after Xiaoyao son of heaven. Finally, Xiaoyao son of heaven was hit in the chest by accident and his chest was charred. Xiaoyao son of heaven grimaced in pain. His eyes were filled with deep rage. "Ant, how dare you hurt me?" Clang. Chapter 2163. There were traces of blood on the stone sword that had not yet dried. The bloodstains had existed for countless years, but they had never dried up or been erased. They had always remained on the sword. This sword was forged by me using the saint origin of the stone embryo son of heaven. It specializes in slaying mortal body saints. Until now, 8 saint body saints have died under this sword. You are the 9th. He slashed with his sword, and the stone sword that seemed to have no sharpness actually cut off the golden hair. The golden flowing light on the surface of Su Yu's body flickered for a while before it stabilized again. The oil lamp on his chest dimmed a little. The sword of the saint body of revolution? Su Yu laughed coldly, and a small cauldron appeared above his head, rotating slowly. Dragon roars rose and fell one after another. That scoundrel ancient god Nine Dragon really did leave some cards up his sleeve. Before going to the Tao Abyss, he found a successor. But, so what? Emperor Xiaoyao didn't take it seriously. Even I have to be wary of the ancient god Jilong controlling the divine Nine Dragon Cauldron, but you, hee. However, the next second, Emperor Xiaoyao was stunned. Su Yu weaved his hands together and muttered an obscure incantation. The heavens grieve, the earth grieves, the common people weep, the Yin extinguishes the Yang pagoda. The divine Nine Dragon Cauldron suddenly released thousands of rays of multicolored light. The crystallized little dragons roared excitedly, as if they could see the light of day again after being bound for a long time. Xiaoyao son of heaven's expression froze little by little. His eyes were filled with disbelief. This is the technique to control the life cauldron. Impossible. Who gave it to you? Is it the body of the human ancestor? Fear began to appear on his face as he retreated bit by bit. Back then, the human ancestor wielded the mortal life cauldron and fought the sacred mountain alone. He annihilated the illusory son of heaven and shattered the mirror-flower son of heaven, causing the 10 sons of heaven to be unable to return to their positions. The indestructible Yin and Yang made Prince Xiaoyao tremble in fear. Su Yu continued to weave hand signs while chanting, "As long as the heavenly law doesn't perish, all living beings will perish. As long as the Son of Heaven doesn't fall, all the deities mourn. Time and space are left with regrets for 10,000 years. One cauldron of heaven and earth shakes the world." Bang! The divine Nine Dragon Cauldron turned upside down and fell from the sky, holding Prince Xiaoyao upside down. Even though Emperor Xiaoyao kept on dodging, he still could not escape the suppression of the divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. With a muffled rumble, Emperor Xiaoyao was pinned under the divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Bang bang bang. From the divine Nine Dragon Cauldron came continuous muffled sounds, as well as the roars and shouts of Emperor Xiaoyao. However, as Su Yu continued to weave hand signs, the sound of struggling became weaker and weaker, until there was no sound at all. With a wave of his hand, Xiao Qin recalled the divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Emperor Xiaoyao was no longer in his original position. Instead, there was a little person roaring at the sky inside the divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. It was Emperor Xiaoyao. Above the divine Nine Dragon Cauldron, there was a net weaved by 7 types of supreme nomological laws that sealed him within, preventing him from rushing out. Moreover, as time passed, Emperor Xiaoyao was continuously melting into a puddle of blood. "Su Yu, if you dare to destroy me, I will never let you off." The clone of Prince Xiaoyao roared continuously. Su Yu's expression was indifferent. "You speak as if he will let me go if I don't kill you." His eyes turned cold. "I originally didn't want to become enemies with the sacred mountain and the Stonebirth Son of Heaven, but you guys have gone too far. You maliciously took away the memories of my beloved, causing me to suffer pain and suffering and destroying my spirit. Now, don't blame me for being ruthless. Everything was forced by you. When he finished speaking, he closed the divine nine-dragon cauldron and allowed the cauldron to destroy the clone completely. So, you have already learned the method of controlling the mortal life cauldron from the human ancestor. Emperor Xiaoyao was suppressed, but the stone of Emperor Mirrorflower and the sinful woman, who was so weak that only her soul was left, were left outside. Su Yu looked at her and said indifferently, "Is there anything else you want to say?" The sinful woman said, "Junior brother, your divine body is about to end. What awaits you is a long period of weakness. Find a place to recover your body as soon as possible." "Don't worry, I will," Su Yu said indifferently. The sinful woman smiled bitterly. "I have nothing else to say. I only have one request. If my teacher is resurrected one day, please apologize to her for me." When she finished speaking, she bowed deeply to Su Yu, turned into a fluorescent light, and disappeared from the world completely. Su Yu was silent. He picked up the stone and the sinful woman's sinful sword that had fallen to the ground. He stood on the spot and was silent for a long time. Then, he said indifferently, "You have been watching from the sidelines for a long time. Are you still not going to leave?" His eyes were like lightning, shooting toward a certain void. The nine-colored flowing light on the surface of his body turned into an arrow and shot toward that place abruptly. The void fluctuated and a region folded. From one of the folded nothingness, a woman dressed in red with a flute on her waist walked out. Seeing this person, Su Yu's eyes softened a little. He said, "So it is you. I haven't repaid you for saving my life in the past." The woman in red was not just anyone. She was Xia Jingyu, who had saved him when he was plotted against by the goddess clan in the reverse flow of time and space. Like the sinful woman, she had the same appearance, the same aura, and the same vessel. If he was not mistaken, Qing Yun was also one of Emperor Mirrorflower's vessels. Qing Yun stared at Su Yu, her eyes filled with fear and confusion. "Where have we met before?" she asked. Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "Maybe I remembered wrongly. Do you have any guidance when you are hiding here?" Qing Yun looked at the divine nine-dragon cauldron in Su Yu's hand and sighed faintly. "Originally, I was ordered by Prince Xiaoyao to secretly attack you and steal the divine nine-dragon cauldron. But who knew? Prince Xiaoyao's second clone was no match for you, and neither was I." Su Yu's expression was indifferent. "So, you still want to attack me?" Shaking her head, Qing Yun said, "After seeing what happened to the sinful woman, may I ask why I continue to be loyal to him? Will I be swallowed by the stone in my body one day?" She turned around and walked away slowly. Leisurely, she said, "You should leave as soon as possible. Prince Xiaoyao will not let you go easily. His first clone should be here to kill you. The second clone you met was probably not even 1/100th as powerful as the first clone." "The first clone?" Su Yu's eyes were calm. "Thank you for telling me." Qing Yun suddenly stopped walking and looked at him deeply. She said, "Go to the goddess clan as soon as possible. I think it is not safe for a woman who has the same appearance as me." "Is she talking about Xia Jingyu? Why do you think so?" Su Yu asked. Qing Yun said, 10 years ago, did you receive the path of survival that Xia Jingyu pointed out to you?" "Yes." Su Yu answered with certainty. Qing Yun said, "That path of survival was actually a dead end. Someone secretly distorted that woman's detection and led you to my location. But at that time I was with Prince Xiaoyao. If you had really reached our location, you would have been long dead." "What?" Su Yu's eyes were ice-cold. Xia Jingyu would not harm him. The one who harmed him was the person who had secretly changed Xia Jingyu's detection. Speaking of which, the goddess clan had always been targeting him, creating disasters everywhere. Within this clan, there must be someone who would not give up on killing him. Chapter 2164. However, her life should not be in danger for the time being. Otherwise, Xia Jingyu would not have survived until now. Suyu cupped his fists and said, "Thank you." Now that he thought about it, it was fortunate that Suyu did not want to implicate Xia Jingyu, so he chose the opposite direction. Otherwise, he would have died if he had encountered the second clone of the Xiaoyao Son of Heaven. Moreover, he finally understood why Xia Jingyu said she would wait for him there. The herself that Xia Jingyu mentioned was actually referring to Qin Yun, who had the same face as Xia Jingyu. Qin Yun shook her head calmly. "No need. You should be careful. After all, you are her friend." After saying that, she took a step forward and disappeared like a phantom. After a moment of silence, Suyu took out the sinful lady's soul crystal. "Master, I'm sorry for my incompetence. In the end, you had to sacrifice yourself to save me." Suyu was filled with guilt. Yun Yazi had been at a critical moment, but he had appeared and sacrificed himself for Suyu. The sinful lady palace? Suyu's eyes were filled with determination. "This time, let me save you." However, he did not know where the sinful lady palace was. Many civilizations had heard of it, but few had heard of it. He thought of the seven-star continent civilization. Perhaps he could find some clues about the sinful lady palace there. He stepped into the void. A few days later, he passed by a familiar civilization. After thinking for a while, he stopped and descended into this civilization. The Dew Empire. It's been a long time. Suyu stood in the depths of the palace, looking at the familiar ruins of the Dew Empire. Everything seemed like it had happened yesterday, but in fact, dozens of years had passed. He stepped into the ruins expressionlessly. The defensive seal did not even ripple, so he did not alert anyone. With a thought, Suyu appeared in the deepest part of the ruins, where the evil dragon was sealed. The 7 ancient swords were still stuck on its back, suppressing it firmly on the ground. In the past, they were extremely powerful beings to Suyu. Now, they were like ants that he could kill with a flick of his finger. With a wave of his hand, the 7 ancient swords all fell off. The slumbering evil dragon suddenly opened its eyes, and an expression of ecstasy appeared on its face. "I'm free." "Who did this? The moon worshippers? Ha 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 ha. Dew Empire, I will destroy your civilization." His words came to an abrupt halt as he caught a glimpse of a figure enveloped in 9-colored light in the corner. Evil Dragon looked up and was stunned. "Who are you?" Suyu replied calmly, "Back then, when I left, I said that one day you would follow me. Now it's time for me to fulfill my promise." "Follow you?" The evil dragon countered with an arrogant tone. "Since when did the people of the Dragon Clan need to follow an outsider?" However, just as he finished speaking, Suyu released a whiff of the Path Master's aura, and the evil dragon's whole body trembled as it lay on the ground, unable to move. The suppression it suffered was countless times stronger than that of the 7 ancient swords. "I am giving you a chance," Suyu said. "Are you willing to follow me, or are you willing to be sealed here forever?" The evil dragon's eyes were filled with fear, and it immediately said, "Follow my lord, I want to follow my lord." Its heart was filled with confusion and shock. It couldn't remember when a Dowlord had come and asked it to follow him. "Come with me." He released the space of a Buddha bead and placed it in the same space as the epoch-making dragon. After putting away the evil dragon, Suyu took a step forward and appeared outside of several civilizations. When he reappeared, he passed by the demon realm. Years ago, it was here that he and Qin Xiener, who had accumulated the fate of the first half of their lives, were severed. After stopping for a while, he was about to leave, when his golden eyes suddenly swept across something unexpected. "So, you are still alive," Suyu said calmly, and silently descended in a corner of the demon realm. Tianyin Continent. A ferocious figure surrounded by a bloody mist was approaching the Tianyin Continent. In the mansion, the half-step path master of the Tianyin Continent and his 2 children, Lai Bo and Lai Hongzhen, gritted their teeth and retreated into the mansion's seal with the strong men in the mansion. They stared at the ferocious figure in the bloody mist with fear in their eyes. The figure was holding a stone axe, and his whole body was emitting a ferocious aura. His mouth was full of blood. Hongjin, Lai Bo, use the mansion's transportation portal and escape quickly. I will hold them off, the Tianyin continent master said. Lai Hongjin smiled bitterly. Where can we escape to? The entire southwest region of the demon realm has been devoured by this thing of unknown origin, and the transportation portals have been destroyed. Where can we be transported to? The Tianyin continent master looked up at the sky and sighed. The demon realm is doomed. Ever since the flood dragon divine warrior left and the stone demon half-ancestor disappeared, the new demon emperor was still in Mo Xiaochai's belly and had yet to be born. Yet, at this moment, a being who called himself the human demon appeared. His cultivation was not top-notch, but his rules were extremely strange. Unlike the chains that ordinary people saw, he could take any form. The most troublesome thing was that his rules were devour. Anything could be eaten directly and turned into his own power. In the past 20 years, he had wreaked havoc in villages and towns, devoured cities, and destroyed entire continents. Until now, he had destroyed countless regions. Now, his power had swelled to the level of a path master, and was extremely terrifying. In the demon realm, there was no one who could stop him. All the creatures in the demon realm had become his meal, and he could devour them at any time. Recently, it was the Tianyin continent's turn. To be chosen by me is your blessing. You will witness the name of the human demon resound in the new era, the human demon said calmly. The human demon said indifferently. His voice contained an extreme amount of power, instantly shattering all the restrictions of the heavenly silver region. The Tianyin continent master, Lai Bo, Lai Hongjin, and the others shuddered violently, vomiting blood. Their faces were filled with despair. The human demon was too strong, and he was not an existence they could contend with. Come on. Become a part of me. The hair behind the human demon spun into a vortex, producing a great devouring power that enveloped the entire Tianyin continent prefecture. Palaces rose from the ground, and the strong men were thrown into the air involuntarily, all of them swept into the vortex. Freeze! At this moment, a nonchalant voice suddenly floated over. The human demon's domain of devouring continued, but everything in the world was frozen in time and space. Who is it? The human demon's expression suddenly stiffened, and he asked in disbelief. Freezing time and space with a single word? What kind of powerful being was this? Swish! Suddenly, a 9-colored light flashed in front of the human demon, and Su Yu appeared before him. When the human demon saw him, he sucked in a breath of cold air and said respectfully, Su Yu's divine body. The divine body Su Yu had hunted down the sinful lady in hundreds of millions of galaxies, shocking the entire universe. Who had not heard of him? The 9-colored flowing light, the golden eyes, and the golden hair left an indelible impression on those who saw him. In the galaxies, there was no one who didn't know that a 9-colored heavenly lord had trampled on the Xing River and hunted down the sinful lady. There was no other way. It would be made up for tomorrow. Chapter 2165. How could the human demon not know about such a person? Especially when he heard that the full name of the 9-colored heavenly lord was Su Yu. This name was the same as the faction master Su Yu he had met in the civilization of the ultimate Yin-Yang faction. Now, this 9-colored heavenly lord had appeared in front of him? Just hearing the rumors was already frightening enough. Facing him at such a close distance, the human demon felt a suffocating pressure, as if the other party could destroy him, a path master, with just a breath. I trust you have been well, Su Yu said lightly. Hearing this, the human demon sucked in a breath of cold air and stammered, You are. Su Yu did not say a word, but made a grabbing motion with one hand. A beam of 9-colored flowing light turned into a giant palm, grabbing at the human demon. The human demon's expression changed drastically as he released his devouring domain. However, the domain was like fragile glass under the giant palm, instantly shattering. The human demon, who had wreaked havoc in the demon realm and terrorized all living beings, was pressed to the ground by the palm. His face was full of terror as he said, "Holy Body Su, I am willing to apologize for any offense I have caused. Considering that I have finally recovered part of my cultivation, please forgive me this once." Su Yu's eyes were indifferent. "Forgive you, and then you will continue to kill the innocent?" As he spoke, he pressed down with his palm, and the human demon's soul was forced out of his body. Su Yu opened his brows, and a reincarnation vortex appeared, forcefully sucking the human demon's soul away. However, he did not digest it immediately. This human demon seemed to have experienced the destruction of the previous era, so he should know many ancient things. Searching through his memory would allow him to learn many things. Looking at the human demon's body and the mysterious stone axe in his hand, Su Yu put them away. After all, it was the complete body of the Path Master, and he could extract 10,000 drops of the Path Master's blood to activate the heavenly law's death eye again. Moreover, the human demon's body was very special. Even if he died, he could be reborn through the bloodline of his descendant. In the past, the human demon had used this method to escape death. After doing this, Su Yu looked at the Tianjin prefecture indifferently and turned his head without saying a word. Holy Body Su, I am sorry." Lai Hongzhen came back to her senses and looked at Su Yu with a complicated expression. She still owed Su Yu an apology. Su Yu did not look back, and turned into a 9-colored flowing light that flickered and disappeared. Lai Hongzhen lowered his head, his heart filled with bitterness. The man she had looked down upon in the past was now a divine body that she could not reach. Even if she wanted to apologize, he might not be willing to listen. After all, who would care about an ant apologizing to them? Su Yu appeared in the 7 Knights' divine capital. His gaze penetrated through all obstacles and he saw Huang Fu Liang and Mo Shaochai. The latter was about to give birth, while the former lay on her belly with concern, listening to the movements of the unborn child in the womb. His face was filled with happiness. As Su Yu looked at her, he felt extremely envious and longing. Wasn't that the life he looked forward to the most once upon a time? He built a cottage with the woman he loved, raised some kittens and puppies, had a few children, and lived an ordinary and quiet life. But fate made fools of people. By the time he understood his feelings, that person had already forgotten him. Between them, everything returned to the beginning. Just as he was deep in thought, Su Yu suddenly detected an unusually cold aura lingering near the imperial palace. His cold eyes swept over Mo Shaochai. He saw a transparent soul of a woman in a palace dress hovering around Mo Shaochai. She was looking for an opportunity when Mo Shaochai was alone. Illusion 9-tailed white fox? Su Yu's eyes were filled with fierce murderous intent. The stone-birth son of heaven. As if sensing the murderous intent, the sneaky beautiful woman in the palace dress suddenly raised her head and met Su Yu's eyes. She screamed in fright and turned to flee. Humph! Su Yu's nostrils flared lightly. The beautiful woman in the palace dress felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She was so weak that only a thin layer of smoke was left. He hooked his finger, and the beautiful woman in the palace dress fell uncontrollably into Su Yu's palm. Once upon a time, the beautiful woman in the palace dress could be high and mighty, granting Su Yu a merciful death. Now, she had fallen into his palm. He could not help but sigh at how quickly things changed. Let me guess, what are you looking for? Su Yu's eyes fixed on Mo Shaochai again. He suddenly looked into her space storage device. Sweeping his gaze across the room, he saw an extraordinary object. It was a foxtail. It was unknown how long it had been broken, but it had not yet rotted. Its fur was still bright and shiny. So, it's your broken 9th tail. Su Yu smiled coldly. He remembered clearly that when the human ancestor fought the holy mountain, He had broken one of the illusion nine-tailed white fox's tails. She had been looking for this thing for many years, but he did not know why it had appeared in Mo Xiao Chai's hands. The beautiful woman in the palace dress stared at Su Yu with hatred. "If I had known this would happen, I would not have let you live." Su Yu shook his head. "Without me, you would still be in the stomach of a puppet, never to see the light of day." Su Yu had already experienced the fickleness of the beautiful woman in the palace dress. He was not soft-hearted towards her. As he spoke, he squeezed his 5 fingers and completely crushed her soul. As the remnant soul of the stone embryo son of heaven, she was too dangerous. He could not let her live. Drip, from within her shattered soul, a green eye fell out. It was exactly the same as the 9 jade spiritual pearl. It was also the heavenly law death eye. Looking inside, it was empty except for the remains. Its expression was serene and lifelike, as if it were a living thing. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. This was the body of the stone embryo son of heaven. Even a strand of its hair was a priceless treasure. He tried to roll it out. In the end, he was surprised to find that even his soul, in the state of the holy mortal body, could hardly move this thing. An hour later, Su Yu's soul was exhausted. He finally managed to move this body out. Its heaviness was beyond his expectations. If it were an ordinary path master, he might not be able to move it at all. Even in the state of the holy mortal body, he could barely move it. Even the body of a path master was precious, let alone the body of the stone embryo son of heaven. Su Yu took the thing away without hesitation. Finally, he looked at the eyeball in his palm, then at Mo Xiao Chai's stomach. After some thought, he flicked his finger. A beam of 9-colored light wrapped around the eyeball and shot it into Mo Xiao Chai's stomach. She did not even notice the existence of the light. She only felt a chill penetrate her body. "Consider it compensation for taking this tale," Su Yu said indifferently. He then stepped into the void and walked towards the continent-level 7-star civilization. In the faraway Azura civilization, unlike the devastation of 10 years ago, the Azura civilization was singing and dancing in an orderly manner. There was no smile on the Xianming Path Master's face. Instead, he continued to stare blankly at the sky. "I didn't expect the 9-colored heavenly sovereign to be Su Yu." His heart was filled with remorse. If he had known that Su Yu would have such achievements, why would he have stopped them in the first place? Now it was too late for regret. Report. What's the matter? Chapter 2166. The mysterious underworld sect master was shocked and said, "The coronation is in a few months, why did she leave? Your subordinate doesn't know. This is a letter left behind by the Realm Lord." Sect Master Xianming immediately took it and opened it. His expression changed drastically. It was a farewell letter left behind by Qin Xiener. There were only a few lines in it. "Thank you, Xianming, for taking care of me for such a long time. However, Xian Er always feels that she is lacking something. I want to go out and have a look. I will come back later. Please take care." After he finished reading, the mysterious Netherpath Master looked up to the sky and sighed with a complicated expression. "Tao Lord, shall we pursue them? If we give chase now, we might still be able to make it." Xianming Taoist Master shook his head bitterly. "If my heart isn't here, what's the use of coming back? Let her go." At the peak of the sacred mountain, a gloomy growl suddenly exploded, the sacred body of the human clan. Sensing that his second clone had been destroyed, Emperor Xiao Yao's main body was extremely furious. Heavenly Sun Mirrorflower's body fragment was stolen, and the holy body of mortal body failed. "Xiao Yao, do you have anything else to say?" said one of the heavenly sons in the drama. Back then, if it wasn't for Xiao Yao Son of Heaven's sudden desire to torture Su Yu, how could things have come to this? Emperor Xiao Yao said in a gloomy voice. "He is just a lesser accomplishment holy mortal body. Killing him is like killing a pig. I will use my second clone. Once I find him, Even if he activates his saint body, he will definitely die. Several years later, a streak of 9-colored light flashed across the boundless and desolate galaxy. The flowing light rapidly weakened, and in the end, completely disappeared. A figure fell out of the stream of light and landed on an empty meteorite. He was, of course, Suyu, who was rushing toward the 7-star civilization continent. After 8 years, he traveled across tens of thousands of galaxies in his divine body state. Even a Downlord would need at least 1,000 years to traverse this distance. With his saint physique, it only took him 8 years to get close. He wanted to reach it in one go, but his body didn't allow him to. The oil lamp on his chest had become extremely weak, as if it would be extinguished by a gust of wind. Maintaining the divine body for too long consumed too much of the oil lamp's energy. This was the price the sinful woman had to pay to maintain the state of the sacred body. The flame of the oil lamp had become weaker, which meant that Suyu couldn't use his holy body state again unless he strengthened the flame again. However, this flame originated from the 1,000 Lanterns Buddha. How could it be so easy to strengthen it? At the same time, as the state of the holy body was removed, a deep sense of weakness hit him. The holy body state consumed not only the ancient lamp's flame, but also Suyu's own potential. He sat on the ground powerlessly. Not only was his physical strength depleted, his soul was weakened, and even his body had become quite fragile. Sitting on the ground, the broken stones on the meteorite could stab him. He tried to use the law of life to recover, but the effect was very weak. It was as if his physical strength had been severely overdrawn, causing his laws to lose their effect. Don't tell me he's crippled? Suyu's heart skipped a beat, and he examined his body thoroughly. In the end, he determined that he had overexerted himself, and it would be difficult for him to recover. Right now, it was extremely difficult for him to even fly, let alone use sword technique. If there were no other circumstances, he would need at least 100 years of meditation before his body could fully recover. However, if there was an extraordinary item called the sky-cleansing dust, it could speed up the recovery process. The sky-cleansing dust was a kind of extremely holy dust, which was produced in the rare sky-cleansing stone mine. Usually, one might not even find a single grain of sky-cleansing dust in a stone mine. It was so rare that it was usually priceless, and it was as difficult as ascending to heaven to buy it. Moreover, with his current situation, where could he go? He probably couldn't even activate the meteorite in front of him. Little Kylan, Suyu called out softly, and the little Kylan appeared. Why are you so weak? The little Kylan blinked its watery purple eyes mischievously. Suyu didn't say a word, but took out the human demon's path master's body, and said, "Help me refine this body." When the little Kylan saw it, it was shocked, and it said, "This is a path master's body. My gosh, are you trying to control it? It's too difficult. Divide." At that moment, Suyu shouted in a low voice, and his soul was divided into two, turning into two identical Suyu. One of them entered the human demon's body. Suyu was immediately repelled by a powerful repelling force. "Refine it," Suyu said. When the little Kylan saw that, it nodded, and immediately spat out a large amount of nothingness, which corroded the human demon's body. The human demon's body instinctively resisted the nothingness. While it was resisting the nothingness, Suyu separated a tiny bit of his soul and inserted it into the human demon's body. The human demon's body trembled, and it was about to reject it, but because it had to resist the nothingness, and because the tiny bit of soul was weak, it didn't bother. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Suyu released another tiny bit of soul and inserted it into the human demon's body. In this way, it took a whole year to finally insert half of the soul into the human demon's body. The human demon's body was finally occupied by Suyu's soul like a frog being boiled in warm water. "It's a pity that the body is still rejecting me, and I can't use the domain," the human demon muttered to himself as he looked at his body. However, he was already satisfied. Even the body of a Path Master was quite powerful. Anyone below the level of a Path Master would definitely die if they were slapped by the human demon. After putting a cloak on the human demon, Suyu kept him in the space of the Buddha pearl, and would release him to fight when necessary. The little Kylan controlled the meteorite with a smile and said, "Leave the rest to me." Suyu was about to nod when he suddenly turned his head and looked toward the east. He sensed several powerful auras rushing toward this place at high speed. Soon, several powerful and extraordinary giant ships came into view. The giant ships were huge, comparable to a 5-star civilization. It was impossible to see them clearly at such a close distance. Each of the giant ships was printed with ferocious and hideous patterns, and layers of divine blood that hadn't dried up yet covered the bodies of the ships. They gave people an extremely uneasy feeling even before they got close. Pirate ships. Suyu was shocked. As expected, the giant ships slowly stopped nearby, and a few warships were released from them to search the surroundings. It seemed that the 9-colored light that Suyu had transformed into had fallen nearby, and this had attracted the pirates in the nothingness. "There's a person over there." A sharp-eyed pirate noticed Suyu's condition. Suyu's eyes turned cold. He took off the space of the Buddha pearl and the 9-jade spiritual pearl and handed them to the little Kylan. "Hide them." The little Kylan held them in its mouth, and then turned into nothingness, hiding around Suyu. "It's a weak human." 2 pirates of the half-step Path Master level were standing on the warship, and they were sizing Suyu up. "Hey, human, did you see a 9-colored light falling?" one of the half-step Path Masters asked. Suyu shook his head, indicating that he hadn't seen it. The pirate looked around angrily. "It seems like it sank into the depths of the nothingness. What bad luck! I thought it was some treasure, and it caused us to end the battle in a hurry. Otherwise, we would have had a chance to capture Ling Yu Tai Ho. What should we do with this brat? Kill him?" The other pirate looked at Suyu. "I'm so sleepy. The next chapter will be posted at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning." Chapter 2167. The pirate beside Suyu pondered for a moment, then placed his hand on Suyu's shoulder to sense it. Then, he said in surprise, "Half-Path Master? Not bad." The other pirate was surprised, and he also tried to test Suyu's cultivation. He said in surprise, "You're only 100 years old, yet you're already a half-Path Master? You must be a genius that only the 7 great families can have." He had been cultivating for more than 120 years, and the half-Path Master's cultivation was indeed not bad. "Lad, are you willing to join us, the Star Pirates?" The half-Path Master pirate stared at Suyu's eyes. "Join the pirates? Me?" Suyu was amused. He didn't expect that he would be forced to join the pirates one day. "Do I have a choice?" Suyu asked in reply. The pirate laughed heartily. "You're very sensible. Let's go, I'll take you to see our captain." This was the reason why Suyu didn't refuse. They were just members of the pirates, and the leader of the pirates hadn't shown himself yet. His strength had probably reached the level of a Path Master. Otherwise, how could he suppress so many half-Path Masters? In his current state, even if he had the body of a human demon, he wouldn't be a match for a Path Master. Suyu was led to one of the pirate ships by the 2 pirates. As they walked, the pirate introduced, "The 9 search pirate ships you see are part of the Pirate Alliance. Every single ship is a great pirate, and the 2 of us belong to the illustrious Sea Wolves Pirates. Our leader is a powerful Path Master who has dominated the Sacred Star continent for many years. If you join us, you'll enjoy endless treasures and beauties." Suyu thought to himself, sure enough, there are strong Path Masters overseeing them. Looking at the other 8 pirate ships, Suyu suppressed his desire to escape. In his current state, he would be in danger no matter where he went. So, it was better to stay among the pirates and see if there was a way to get the sky pure dust. Soon, Suyu was brought to a luxurious cabin. Although it was called a cabin, it was actually quite spacious, and there were grand halls everywhere. A palace shaped like a giant ship was the most eye-catching. It was floating in midair, and many powerful seals were flickering around it. "Leader, we haven't found the 9-colored light," the 2 pirates reported. After a while, a soft sigh came from within the palace. "Let's go back and continue to kill the 7 Absolute Alliance's warships," the 2 pirates said. "Leader, we found a weak human. His cultivation is quite good. We think we can let him join us and replenish our members." The Sea Wolves pirates had suffered heavy losses when they attacked the 7 Absolutes Alliance's warship. This was the best time to recruit new members. "Oh? Is that so?" A probing gaze shot out from the palace of the giant ship and stared straight into Su Yu's body. Once he was done, Sea Wolf Dowlord said with slight regret, "He's not bad indeed. He's not even 130 years old, yet he's already a half-step Dowlord. What's more commendable is that his soul's degree of deification is very high, and there's hope for him to break through to become a Dowlord. However, his body seems to have been severely overdrawn, and it's difficult for him to display his full strength." The 2 pirates were slightly startled. Severe overdraft? They thought it was only temporary weakness. Then what does the leader mean? The 2 pirates understood that they had made an unnecessary move and picked up an extra person. "Let him stay for the time being and observe his performance. If he performs well, I might consider rewarding him with a grain of sky-cleansing dust." With the experience of the Sea Wolves Pathmaster, he knew that the sky-cleansing dust was the only way. Su Yu was surprised. Did the Sea Wolves pirates have the sky-cleansing dust? Seeing his surprised expression, the 2 pirates laughed. "You're lucky. We recently seized a mine and found a grain of sky-cleansing dust in it." Was it really such a coincidence? Su Yu didn't really believe it. Even a 7-star civilization on the continent would find it difficult to find a sky-cleansing mine. The value of a grain of sky-cleansing dust was unimaginable. Su Yu's background was unknown, and his strength was unknown. Yet, they wanted to give him the sky-cleansing dust to recover his body? They were pirates, not running a charity. Why would they be so kind? If he guessed correctly, they wanted to exploit his strength and make him work for them. "Thank you, leader." Of course, Su Yu still said so on the surface. "Okay, I'll give you a whiff of the Path Master's strength. The next battle will depend on your performance." Beams of the Path Master's strength shot out from the palace of the giant ship and entered Su Yu's body. All of a sudden, Su Yu felt his weakness disappear. It wasn't that his body was being healed, but that the whiff of the Path Master's strength was forcibly supporting him. Once the Path Master's strength was exhausted, his body would return to its previous weakness. However, the Path Master's intention was obvious. It was obvious that he wanted Su Yu to work for him. It would be great if Su Yu could make a contribution, but if he couldn't, he deserved to die. Su Yu understood his intention, but he still pretended to be grateful. "Go and get ready." The 3 of them left the cabin. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Du Buchan." The half-step Path Master who had introduced Su Yu to the pirates was him. "I'm the deputy leader of the Sea Wolves pirates. This is Jiang Nanyu, also one of the deputy leaders." The other pirate was the one who had suggested killing Su Yu. Du Buchan's white clothes fluttered in the wind, and he looked gentle. He didn't look like a cold-blooded, murderous pirate at all. Jiang Nanyu, on the other hand, exuded a faint sense of aloofness. "Su Rushu, thank you for saving me, deputy leaders." Du Buchan smiled warmly. "You are injured, so go and rest well. I hope you can help us in the battle later." Of course. Under their arrangement, Su Yu stayed in a cabin. Su Yu didn't have to look outside to know that he was being watched. However, he didn't plan to do anything bad. Su Yu clenched his fists and felt his body's condition. He nodded slightly. "The Path Master's power in my body is only enough for me to use my sword technique once. Even if my opponent is a Path Master, I'm confident that I can kill him." He had the power to protect himself, but the alliance of 7 unparalleled masters didn't sound like an easy target. It was best to be cautious. At the back of the ship, Jiang Nanyu said, "I told you it was unnecessary. You thought you could take credit, but you ended up picking up a piece of trash." Hearing that, Du Buchan's gentle expression disappeared and was replaced with disdain. Who knew he was injured so badly? Jiang Nanyu shook her head and said, "Do you think our leader will really give him the sky pure dust? That's a treasure that our brothers risked their lives to get back." "Hee. Why don't you take a look at yourself in the mirror? The sky pure dust is such a precious treasure. Among the 10 great pirates, apart from Xie Xiaoye, who else would be willing to give it to us?" Du Chen was unconcerned. "Besides, didn't you notice that our leader only gave him a wisp of the Path Master's power? Our leader just wanted him to use his remaining power to help us charge the enemy. The sky pure dust was just a way to lure him." Jiang Nanyu laughed. "That's true. We, the Sea Wolves pirates, never accept useless people. Let's not talk about him." Du Buchan's expression turned serious. "The daughter of the #1 peerless family, Biyun Hongxian, is on the warship of the alliance of 7 unparalleled masters. If we can capture this woman, the reputation of our pirate alliance will soar. All the pirates nearby will join us." Jiang Nanyu licked her lips. "Think about who Biyun Hongxian is. She is the future heir of the #1 peerless family. If we capture her, we can ask for any ransom. However, it won't be easy to capture her. She is protected by many experts, and she is a powerful expert herself." Du Buchan chuckled. "The two of us might not stand a chance. Why don't we make use of that human and let him scout the way before we act?" "Good idea." A few days later, Su Yu was cultivating in the cabin, recovering his body. Boom! All of a sudden, a deafening rumble was heard, and the whole pirate ship was shaking violently. Su Yu opened his eyes abruptly. Just as he was feeling bewildered, someone knocked on the door. "Brother Rushu, come out quickly. We've reached the battlefield." Su Yu left the cabin and stood on the deck. As he gazed into the distance, he couldn't help but gasp in amazement. Thousands of giant warships were bombarding each other in the void. Those giant cannons were extremely powerful, and each of them had the power of a half-Dowlord. Even a half-Dowlord would be turned into ashes by a casual bombardment. More than 80% of the warships were pirate ships. Only 200 snow-white warships managed to break through the blockade of the pirate ships with much difficulty, breaking out of the encirclement. Among the many snow-white warships, there was a crimson warship that was particularly eye-catching. "Do you see that ship?" Du Buchan pointed at the crimson warship. "The daughter of the greatest family is on that ship. Any pirate ship that can capture her will become famous in the world, and the other pirates will attach themselves to it. If you were the one who did such a great deed, Tian Jingchen would never forget you," Du Buchan said patiently. Even a fool could tell that he was encouraging Su Yu to scout the way. He was a human, and his body was weak, but that didn't mean he was a fool. "I see. However, with so many warships, it won't be easy to board that crimson warship, will it? Moreover, how can we capture the daughter? Even if we do, it won't be easy to bring her back." Su Yu voiced his opinion. Du Buchan chuckled and said, "Of course there will be some danger, but riches come from danger. The opportunity to make a great deed is right in front of you. If you give it up, it will be difficult for you to encounter it again." Su Yu sneered inwardly. Even if he really made a great deed, Tian Jingchen might not give it to him, would he? However, Du Buchan's words reminded Su Yu. Since the daughter was so important, if he could capture her, he believed that both the Pirate Alliance and the 7 Unparalleled Alliance would be very willing to exchange a grain of Tian Jingchen for her. "Deputy Leader, you are right." Su Yu pretended to be confused and said with a smile, "Then, I will go first." Du Buchan said seriously, "Come on. We will support you." Su Yu nodded and jumped onto a small warship. He passed through the heavy artillery fire and sped towards the crimson warship. Jiang Nanyue laughed contemptuously. What a good use! Du Buchan hurriedly retrieved a small warship and said, "Follow him and let him attract the attention of the Seven Unparalleled Alliance." As soon as he finished speaking, several snow-white warships discovered Su Yu and opened fire at him. Dozens of artillery fire engulfed Su Yu and the warship. Du Buchan and the others who were following behind him hurriedly turned around. Jiang Nanyue cursed, "Is he brainless? How could he be destroyed so quickly?" Chapter 2168. Du Buchan was also annoyed that his plan had failed. He said, "Let's wait and see." They planned to take their time to think about it. Little did they know that just as they turned around, a small pink figure flickered in the smoke. However, as they were on the battlefield, they did not notice it. It turned out that the little Kylin had used the illusory transformation technique to wrap Su Yu within it when the giant cannon was about to attack. With its illusory transformation, they did not even have to worry about their breaths leaking out. The people on the white warships saw that Su Yu had been blown into smithereens and immediately focused their attention in another direction. They did not know that a hidden presence was sticking to the bottom of one of the white warships. Su Yu's mind was racing. The so-called First Peerless Family's daughter, Biyun Hongxian, must be under the protection of many strong men. There must be path masters among them. With his current strength, it would be easy for him to break in, but it would be extremely difficult for him to come back. Therefore, to capture Biyun Hongxian, force alone was far from enough. Su Yu looked at Jiang Nanyue and Du Buchan, his eyes cold. "Fine, I'll use you two as stepping stones." He silently circled around them and approached them. At that moment, Du Buchan and Jiang Nanyue were still carefully hiding under a pirate ship, staring at the fierce battle ahead. They did not notice that Su Yu was approaching. "Looking at the situation, there won't be a result for a while," Du Buchan said. Du Buchan said, "Although our pirate alliance has more people, the other party's experts are stronger." Jiang Nanyue was not satisfied and sighed. "Unfortunately, we won't have a chance to capture Biyun Hongxian. Let's go back to the pirate ship first." Du Buchan turned around. However, just as he was about to turn around, a large stick suddenly appeared out of nowhere and smashed into his head. Du Buchan was immediately hit by a powerful soul attack, causing him to feel dizzy. Before he could recover, the stick hit him again. Du Buchan finally rolled his eyes and slumped weakly. A burlap sack suddenly stretched out and stuffed him into it. All of this happened in just a moment. Jiang Nanyue only heard the movement behind her. When she turned around, Du Buchan was already gone. Her expression changed slightly, and she immediately turned into a residual shadow and flew toward her pirate ship. Freeze! Suddenly, a strand of space froze, and it froze his figure on the spot. After that, his head was struck fiercely by the rod, and he fell unconscious. He took out another sackcloth bag and placed it inside. The person who had attacked was naturally Su Yu. After loading the two of them, he sped towards the crimson battleship. Inside the warship, in a quiet and elegant villa, a beautiful woman in a red robe was quietly reading a book. The bombardment outside did not disturb his reading at all. She was the daughter of the No. 1 Peerless clan, Biyun Hongxian. Behind her, there were 3 unfathomable Dowlords standing silently. "Report. Miss, our side has suffered heavy losses, and we are unable to break out of the encirclement. Please make an early plan, Mississippi." Hearing this, the woman raised her head indifferently and said, "Yes, it's about time. Let's go." Biyun Hongxian did not care about the situation of the battle. She did not even want to know how many people had died. At this moment, a soldier suddenly walked over and said, "Report. Miss, a member of the Sea Wolves pirates has betrayed us and wishes to join us. Please make the decision, Mississippi." Biyun Hongxian looked over lightly, and her calm eyes were full of wisdom. "They must be pretending to surrender, but they are actually trying to get close to me. Deal with them as you see fit." The soldier hurriedly said, But this pirate also brought along 2 deputy leaders of the Sea Wolves pirates. Bai Yun Hongxian was slightly surprised. Capturing 2 deputy leaders? If they were pretending to surrender, the price would not be low. She shook her head with a smile and said disapprovingly, "To get close to me, these pirates are really unscrupulous. Destroy them, and don't bother replying to me." The seemingly quiet Bai Yun Hongxian turned out to be an extremely determined, intelligent, calm, and decisive woman. She had seen through Su Yu's plan. Yes. Upon hearing this, the soldier immediately returned to the deck. He hurried up to one of the commanding generals and whispered his orders. The commanding general was an expert at the level of a half-step Daolord. Hearing Bai Yun Hongxian's words, he understood. In fact, he did not agree with recruiting the pirates at this particular moment. It was difficult to determine whether the other party was sincere or just taking the opportunity to board the ship. Looking at the black-cloaked man sitting in the pavilion, quietly waiting for news, the commanding general's eyes were filled with coldness. He walked over with a smile and said, "Brother Demon, I have informed Miss about your situation. She is very pleased that Brother Demon is able to stand on the right side in such a critical situation. After all, the other party was a half-step Dao master. Even if the commanding general wanted to kill him, he would have to use a strategy. The first step was to stabilize the Sea Wolves pirates member known as the Demon Man. But the demon said, 'Is that so? Then why doesn't your miss come out to see me?' The commanding general was unperturbed, but he secretly sneered. The fox's tail was exposed. Miss was right. This person was deliberately trying to get close to Miss with an ulterior motive. Miss is dressing up, so she asked me to receive you first, Brother Demon." The commanding general was beaming. He clapped his hands, and immediately, a soldier came over with good wine. He said, "Brother Demon, I admire you for capturing 2 deputy leaders alive by yourself. It's nothing much." The demon man drank his wine absent-mindedly, completely unaware of the approaching danger. Several half-step Daolord experts were secretly gathering on the deck. Once they were all here, they would attack the demon man and eliminate him. The commanding general patiently chatted with the demon man for a while. When he received a hint that the ambush was ready, he stood up with a smile. Then, "Brother Demon, welcome to us." As soon as he finished speaking, he would immediately attack with the other half-step Dao masters to kill the demon man. However, at this moment, a clear shout shook the entire Crimson warship. "Stand down, don't fall for it." Then, a wave of oppressive sword chi enveloped the entire warship without any warning. Inside the cabin, Bai Yun and Hongxian's calm expression changed slightly. The 3 Dao masters behind her revealed expressions of deep fear. What a terrifying sword technique! Who is it? On the deck, before the commanding general could figure out who it was, he saw a figure that came out of nowhere step onto the deck and perform an ordinary sword strike. This sword technique was filled with extreme profundity. It was simple and ordinary, but it contained endless profundities. Pucci, the half-step Dao Master Demon Man, didn't even have a chance to resist before the sword pierced through his body. At the same time, the figure didn't stop. He arrived in front of Du Buchan and Jiang Nanyue and struck their heads with his palm. Chapter 2169. The self-detonation of 2 half-step Dao Masters would have severely damaged the giant warship beneath their feet. The few half-step Dao Masters who had come to besiege them, as well as the commanding general himself, would have been annihilated. The commanding general wiped the sweat from his palms as he stepped forward angrily. He destroyed Du Buchan and Jiang Nanyue's inner worlds with just 2 palm strikes, turning them into cripples. The pitiful 2 of them were still unconscious and had no idea what had happened. Only then did the commanding general heave a sigh of relief. He cupped his fists at the figure approaching him and thanked him sincerely. "Thank you for saving us." The expert in front of him was a human creature from a 9th-rated race. He had a head of long silver hair, a pair of wise and cold eyes, and a slightly thin body. He was the complete opposite of the stunning sword strike just now. This person was undoubtedly Su Yu. The person under the black cloak was the human demon. Su Yu knew that if he wanted to win Biyun Hongxian's trust, he couldn't rely on just the two deputy leaders. Therefore, he had set up a series of plans to win their trust. He didn't dare to say anything about the others, but the commanding general in front of him wasn't on guard against him. "I didn't save you." Su Yu's expression was cold, as if he didn't care about him at all. He walked forward and took off his cloak, revealing the demon's true appearance. An intense evil energy emanated from him, causing the commanding general to shudder. "This is?" he asked cautiously, as the human demon gave him a terrifying feeling. Su Yu replied calmly, "A path master who cultivated the devouring domain is dead." "A path master?" The commanding general sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder the corpse was so terrifying. Right at that moment, Biyun Hongxian and the three path masters, who had sensed the terrifying sword energy, walked out. They stared at the human demon on the ground, and the expressions of the three path masters sank slightly. An ancient demon. One of the path masters heaved a sigh of relief. "Fortunately, he's dead." The other two path masters stared at Su Yu in bewilderment. They asked hesitantly, "The sword strike just now was?" The commanding general immediately said, "Greetings, sirs. Reporting to sirs, it's all thanks to this human powerhouse that we—" He told them everything that had happened just now. After listening to him, the three path masters stared at the human demon's corpse with loathing in their eyes. The people of the Pirate Alliance are indeed cunning. Fortunately, young Miss was wise and did not fall for it, giving him a chance to meet. Otherwise, it would have been troublesome. Biyun and Hongxian's eyes were fixed on Su Yu. His eyes were deep and calm, like a vast ocean that no one could see the bottom of. She looked at Su Yu's expression and bowed to him. She then said in a sweet voice, "Young master, thank you for helping me. May I ask for your name?" Su Yu calmly glanced at her, then looked away expressionlessly. He didn't even bother to pay attention to her, as he bent down to search the human demon's body for his spoils of war. Being ignored, Biyun Hongxian did not get angry. Instead, she maintained her calm and said, "I represent the number 1 Peerless clan to express my sincere gratitude to you. I also have some gifts, I hope you will accept them." She took out a bronze card that contained a decent amount of Dao coins. However, Su Yu didn't even spare him a glance. He didn't even turn his head around as he calmly said, "I only act for myself, so you don't need to thank me." At this time, he had already plundered the human devil's corpse and taken it away. Of course, the human devil wasn't dead, but the soul in his body had been taken back by Su Yu, so he looked like a dead corpse. After doing this, he stepped into the void and was about to leave. Seeing such a strong man leave just like that, the three path masters hurriedly said, "My young friend, please wait." Su Yu stopped and looked at them. "Is there anything I can help you with?" When Biyun and Hongxian saw this, they mistakenly thought that Su Yu was only willing to talk to the path masters as equals. As they recalled that terrifying sword strike, Biyun and Hongxian understood why Su Yu was so indifferent. Everyone below the path masters was like an ant, so it was normal for him to have such a mentality. "Little friend, we have a presumptuous request. We hope that you can stay behind and lend us a hand," the three Dao masters said. Su Yu frowned. "I'm just a half-step path master, how can I help you?" The three path masters laughed bitterly. "My young friend, don't be modest. I'm afraid your sword strike just now could have killed all of us. As you can see, we are at an absolute disadvantage, and will be wiped out soon. So, please help us, my young friend." Hearing this, Su Yu was a little displeased. "Guys, since you already know that you will be wiped out, why are you still asking for my help? What's the meaning of this? Could it be that they were going to drag him to the grave with them?" The three path masters hurriedly said, "My young friend, can we go into the cabin to talk? You can rest assured that we won't mistreat you. Su Yu hesitated for a moment, then said, "All right." Just like that, Su Yu openly entered the cabin of the Crimson battleship, sharing a room with Bai Yun and Hong Xian, whom the Pirate Alliance wanted to capture. Of course, she was protected by the 3 Pathmasters, so Su Yu couldn't do anything to her. However, he had already gained their trust, just as he had planned. "My young friend, to tell you the truth, we are preparing to retreat." The 3 Pathmasters went straight to the point. Su Yu's expression was calm as he said, "You mean to leave the battleship and ordinary people to attract the attention of the Pirate Alliance while you escape?" After a pause, Su Yu looked at Bai Yun and Hong Xian and said, "Or, in fact, you deliberately allowed yourself to be ambushed by the Pirate Alliance and lured them out so that you could set up an inescapable net to kill the Pirate Alliance?" Hearing this, the 4 people in the room were all shocked. A look of surprise flashed across Bai Yun and Hong Xian's calm face as they sized Su Yu up. If only the 4 of them knew this secret, she would have suspected that he had heard it from somewhere else. Indeed, as the daughter of the number 1 peerless family, knowing that she was being eyed by the Pirate Alliance, how could she hastily leave the 7 Stars civilization? She had deliberately appeared here to attract the attention of the Pirate Alliance. In secret, the entire 7 Stars civilization had mobilized a large number of strong men to form a huge encirclement. At this moment, the encirclement was shrinking rapidly. When the time came, the Pirate Alliance would be like turtles in a jar. For many years, the nearby pirate forces, big and small, had continuously harassed the 7 Stars civilization. The 7 Stars civilization often mobilized forces to wipe them out. However, they were very scattered. Often, when they attacked a pirate force, the other pirates would get the news and immediately hide. When the storm had passed, they would come out to do evil again. Secondly, they were very mobile. Once they were hunted down, they would immediately hide in the vast nothingness, making it impossible to find them. After a discussion, the 7 great families of the 7 Stars civilization decided to make a risky move. Using her as bait, they would capture all the nearby pirate forces in one fell swoop. She had just received news that the people of the 7 Stars civilization, who were lying in ambush, had already sealed off the vicinity and informed her to evacuate quickly, lest the Pirate Alliance put up a desperate fight and harm her. The 4 of us are now preparing to evacuate from this place. However, as you can see, in order to lure the Pirate Alliance into our trap, we did not bring too much power. Only the 3 of us are protecting the young lady. The 3 of them were not weak, but they were besieged by the 10 great pirate leaders. In front of the 10 Pathmasters, it was completely unknown whether the 3 of them could protect Bai Yun and Hong Xian's safe retreat. Coincidentally, Su Yu had arrived. Naturally, they hoped that Su Yu could lend them a hand. Hearing this, Su Yu pondered. If he could protect Bai Yun and Hong Xian back to the 7 Stars civilization and exchange her for the sky pure dust, then he could completely abandon the plan to kidnap her. Plans could not keep up with the changes, so Su Yu immediately made corresponding adjustments. He thought for a moment, then said, "I understand what you mean. I can agree to help Miss Bai Yun retreat safely, but I want a grain of sky pure dust. Can you satisfy that?" Sky pure dust? Chapter 2170. One of the Pathmasters even laughed. "If you wanted something else, it might be hard to say, but the sky pure dust. Haha, we are the number 1 family, and we control the largest sky pure mine in the 7 unique civilizations. We can produce 3 grains of sky pure dust every year. If you can really help our young lady return to the 7 unique civilizations, we can consider giving you a grain of sky pure dust," the Pathmaster said. The 4 of them looked at Su Yu, waiting for his response. Su Yu laughed silently for a while, then said, "You mean, even if I do my best to protect your young lady's return to the 7 unique civilizations, whether or not I give it to you depends on your mood?" Ambiguous words were the most untrustworthy. Noticing Su Yu's displeasure, Bai Yun Hongxian said, I swear on my name that I will definitely give you one. Suyu nodded lightly. All right. But as you can see, my body is severely overdrawn, and I'm relying on a wisp of the Path Master's power to support me. If it's used up, I'll need more from the 3 Path Masters. Haha, no problem. How could the 3 Path Masters not see the abnormality in Suyu's body? Now, they naturally agreed. With just a little bit of the Path Master's power, they could get the help of a great swordsman. Why not? What's your plan of retreat? Suyu asked. No plan. The 3 Path Masters said calmly. Because, before the whole plan of annihilation began, we didn't know the specific situation. So, when we formulated the plan, we planned to act according to the situation. The corners of Suyu's mouth twitched. This time, the pirates had attacked more than 1,000 forces. Among them, there were dozens of Path Masters. Moreover, this warship was the one that all the pirates were paying the most attention to. It wouldn't be difficult to escape from under their noses. After pondering for a moment, Suyu said, If you don't have a plan, I do, but it depends on whether you have the guts. The 3 Path Masters immediately said, Please speak. In fact, they already had their own ideas, but they still wanted to hear Suyu's plan. Suyu looked at the warships in the sky and said, How about we beat them at their own game? The 3 Path Masters were startled. It seemed that Suyu's plan was different from what they had in mind. How do we beat them at their own game? In their opinion, creating a diversion was the best. One party disguised themselves as Bai Yun Hongxian and escaped the place, drawing away most of the pirates, while the real Bai Yun Hongxian secretly escaped under the cover of the strong martial artist. A diversion, Suyu said. The 3 Dao Lords secretly looked down on him. They had thought that he would have some good ideas, but it turned out that he was just like them. It seemed that everyone had the same opinion. However, he heard Suyu say, We'll let the real Biyun Hongxian lure the enemy away, and the disguised Biyun Hongxian will follow behind. Do you mean to ask our young mistress to lure the enemy away so that we can escape? The 3 Path Masters looked at Suyu in disbelief. What kind of person could come up with such a stupid idea? Let's not consider this method for the time being. A Path Master immediately rejected Suyu's idea. Although the other 2 Dao Lords didn't say anything, it was obvious what they were thinking. As for Bai Yun and Hongxian, they stared at Suyu thoughtfully and said, I think what you're trying to say is that our plan of making a feint in the east and attacking in the west has already been prepared by the enemy, so they may not be fooled. So, we'll beat them at their own game and use the feint in the east to attack them. But what if the enemy isn't as smart as we think and really catches up to us? Won't our young mistress be in danger? The 3 Path Masters asked. Bai Yun Hongxian looked at Suyu and said, Then, it depends on this young master's specific strategy. Suyu smiled calmly. That's why I said it depends on whether you have the guts or not. After a moment of silence, Bai Yun Hongxian said, I think that our young master's plan should be more promising than creating a diversion. She was implying that she approved of Suyu's strategy. Suyu was slightly surprised. This woman was quite wise and far-sighted. Ordinary people wouldn't take such a risk. Since she had said so, the 3 Path Masters naturally wouldn't oppose it. They said, Fine, let's take a gamble. Suyu nodded slightly and said, This is the specific plan. After hearing his plan, the 5 of them immediately started preparing. After a moment, Suyu, a Path Master, and Bai Yun Hongxian boarded a small boat and suddenly left the Crimson Warship, rushing in the direction of the 7 unique civilizations. Such a movement immediately attracted the attention of all the pirates. Many pirates of the smaller forces immediately rushed forward to chase after them. However, the pirates of the larger forces strangely didn't make any movements. Report. Bai Yun Hongxian escaped under the cover of a Path Master and a half-step Path Master. A crew member in front of the Sea Wolf Path Master reported immediately. The Sea Wolf Path Master muttered to himself, 3 Path Masters, but only one of them was sent to protect her. "Ha, is it a diversion?" As expected, the pirates had already deduced that Bai Yun Hongxian would definitely escape based on the situation. Moreover, she wouldn't escape directly. There would definitely be some kind of camouflage. The current diversion was a pretty good camouflage. He would let someone disguise as Bai Yun Hongxian to divert most of their attention, and then the real Bai Yun Hongxian would escape. However, just in case, they couldn't let the fake Bai Yun Hongxian escape. What if she was real? Although it was really just a what if. Send a few small boats to intercept her, the Sea Wolf Path Master said. The rest of the pirates made similar analyses. This was because they had met not long ago and exchanged opinions. They predicted that the other party would definitely have a camouflage. Because of this, an extremely strange scene appeared. The 10 great pirates did not make a move and only sent a small group of people to chase after her. Many small and medium-sized pirates noticed the abnormality of the big pirates and understood what was going on. Most of them gave up on the chase and continued to attack the Crimson warship. Half a day later, what made all the pirates excited was that, as expected, when the Seven Wonders Alliance's warships were almost completely destroyed, the real Bai Yun Hongxian finally escaped on a small boat under the cover of the 2 Dowlords. The Sea Wolf Path Master laughed. "Let's see who's going to die this time." Whoever could capture Bai Yun Hongxian would have the initiative to negotiate with the number 1 Absolute's realm and obtain unimaginable benefit. After this, they might even become the king of the pirates with the benefits of extortion. The other pirates moved one after another, and the auras of Path Masters soared into the sky. Many experts of the small and medium-sized pirates gave chase. The 2 Path Masters who were running away were shocked, but also secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, the young mistress did not use our diversion plan. Everything is within the enemy's expectations. One of the Path Masters secretly rejoiced. Another Dowlord nodded. Yes, that human is extraordinarily wise. He's a match for the human that our number 1 peerless family has taken in. This person's wisdom should be above that of the human we took in. The 2 of them spoke one after another as they fled quickly with the fake Bai Yun Hongxian. On the other side, Su Yu and another Path Master were fleeing in an orderly manner with Bai Yun Hongxian. Sensing that there were not many people chasing after them, Bai Yun Hongxian's eyes lit up as she looked at Su Yu. "My young friend, your foresight is flawless. I admire you," the Path Master said in surprise. "May I ask for your name?" Su Yu said, "Su Rishu. I am the Rock Path Master. Please come to my mansion when you return to the 7 Absolutes civilization." The Rock Path Master treated Su Yu as a peer. "It's still too early to say that. We haven't completely shaken off the enemy," Su Yu said. The Rock Path Master nodded slightly. His expression was slightly grave. "There is indeed a powerful pirate chasing after us." When he turned around, he saw a Path Master standing on the bow of a battleship made of bones. The Rock Path Master knew the Path Master. He was the White Bone Path Master, who was ranked 11th among the pirates. This Path Master had failed to enter the ranks of the 10 great pirates because of a single move. However, his powerful cultivation was undeniable. If they really fought, the Rock Path Master didn't have much confidence in winning. Then, there were the scattered small pirates with varying levels of strength. If he couldn't spare his hands, it was unknown whether Su Yu and Bai Yun Hongxian would be able to contend with them. The Rock Path Master laughed heartily as he flew. He said, "White Bone Path Master, the real Bai Yun Hongxian is here. Come on, don't stop." He wanted to use this as a diversion to make the White Bone Path Master realize that he was chasing after the fake Bai Yun Hongxian. Upon hearing this, the White Bone Path Master said in a hoarse voice, "Nonsense. Of course I know. I'm chasing after Bai Yun Hongxian. How could she be a fake?" The Rock Path Master's face stiffened. It turned out that the White Bone Path Master didn't realize that there was a possibility of a diversion. He had foolishly chased after them. The Rock Path Master didn't arouse the White Bone Path Master's suspicion. Instead, it made him even more convinced that he was chasing after Bai Yun Hongxian. Even Su Yu couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. How could such a stupid person become a Pathmaster? Don't run. Bai Yun Hongxian is mine. The White Bone Path Master's body rippled with a layer of white bone powder. Su Yu and Bai Yun Hongxian, who were far away, felt their bones soften rapidly. It was as if they were being sucked away by something. Be careful. It's the White Bone Path Master's domain. The Rock Path Master wasn't affected at all. He stepped forward and enveloped Bai Yun Hongxian to offset the opponent's domain attack. However, he only had time to protect Bai Yun Hongxian. He didn't have time to care about Su Yu. Strangely, Su Yu wasn't seriously injured. Instead, he was in a better state than Bai Yun Hongxian. This surprised the Rock Path Master inwardly. He didn't know that Su Yu had created a small world and hid himself within it. How could an ordinary domain attack hurt him? The White Bone Path Master's attack failed, but he still took advantage of the situation and chased after Su Yu. Numerous bone spikes shot out of his body. They were like an upside-down forest. The Rock Path Master snorted coldly and said, "I'll deal with him. Su Yu, protect the young lady and leave first." As he spoke, he injected 2 whiffs of the Path Master's energy into Su Yu's body. It was enough for Su Yu to use the morning and evening sword with his full power twice. "Let's go." Su Yu steered the small boat and sped away. Hundreds of pirate ships were chasing after him. There were many powerful experts among the pirates, and they caught up with him after a short while. Chapter 2171. You can't escape. Su Yu turned his head and looked at them coldly. As he spread his fingers, 9 bright silver suns appeared in the sky. 9 suns cosmos sword formation. The sword formation fell and turned into a sharp light that could split the sky and earth, cutting everything in its path. Creak. The small boat, together with the people on it, was cut into pieces. Seeing this, Bai Yun Hongxian was secretly surprised. Even a half-step Path Master was slaughtered? The many pirates who were chasing them stopped in their tracks, hesitating whether they should continue chasing them or not. However, Su Yu also stopped in his tracks. "You don't want to chase us anymore? Then, it's my turn to chase you." Su Yu took out the Royal Dragon Sword and slashed it across the air. Ultimate Ruins! Endless pitch-black sword shadows turned into a demonic dragon, roaring as they charged down. One pirate ship after another was directly devoured by the berserk dragon, annihilated to the point where not even dregs were left. The hesitant pirates finally fled in panic. But how could they outrun the demonic dragon? In just a short while, the pirate ships in the void had been wiped out, leaving not a single one behind. Only then did Su Yu put away his sword calmly. Bai Yun Hongxian was surprised. She looked at Su Yu and said, "Mr. Su, why did you waste the power of a Path Master?" They obviously didn't dare to chase them anymore, so there was no need to. "Don't you already know the reason?" Su Yu looked at her calmly. Bai Yun Hongxian brushed her hair behind her ear and said, "Mr. Su, you actually killed them to show me, so that I would remember my promise." Hee. Su Yu just laughed, then steered the small boat to go back. Looking at the Rock Path Master, who was in a very passive position in the hands of the White Bone Path Master, Su Yu said calmly, "Wait for a moment." He took a deep breath and took out an ancient sword that was completely black. This was the Sinful Lady's Doctrine artifact, the Sinful Sword. Its power could only be used by the user. However, the sharpness of the sword could still be used. He held the sword with one hand, and his body was surrounded by a mysterious aura. He jumped up and stabbed the sword. The Rock Path Master, who was fighting, suddenly felt a terrifying aura, so he hurriedly dodged. A seemingly ordinary sword shadow brushed past his thorns and touched the White Bone Path Master's chest. Crack! The sound of bones breaking could be heard from within his body, and then his entire body began to break into pieces. A large amount of vitality leaked out from the crack. The domain it covered was rapidly disintegrating. This was the sign of the Daelord's death. Impossible! My white bone body is said to be the strongest among the white bone Daelords. How could it shatter? The white bone Daelord muttered in disbelief. His eyes grew dimmer and dimmer, and even his soul was dissipating. Why not? A wooden sword could still injure the sinful girl. Was it difficult to kill the white bone Daelord? Su Yu tapped the space between his brows with his finger, and a soul vortex opened up, sucking in all of the scattered souls. With the addition of the human devil's soul, there were now 2 souls of Daelords. If he were to refine all of their souls, he was afraid that his soul would be so strong that this body would explode. Su Yu took a look at the White Bones Path Master's corpse and accepted it. 10,000 drops of blood, why not? Hiss! The Boulder Path Master gasped as he witnessed the entire process from a close distance. A battle between 2 Daelords was usually difficult to end with death. This was because both the Daelord's body and soul were difficult to destroy. However, the White Bone Daelord, who was even more powerful than him, had been obliterated by a single sword strike? By Yun Hongxian, who was watching the battle from afar, also wore a shocked expression. What kind of sword technique was this? How could it be so terrifying? The same sword of dawn and dusk, when used by the sinful sword, was even more powerful than the wooden sword. An ordinary Daelord would not be able to escape such a strike. Su Yu put away the sinful sword, returned to the boat expressionlessly, and said indifferently, "The enemies will react soon. Let's hurry." "Oh, okay." The Boulder Path Master's attitude had become much more humble. On the other side, the 2 Daelords, who were trying their best to escape, failed in the end, and were surrounded by a group of great pirates. The fake by Yun Hongxian? Where is the real one? The Sea Wolf Path Master looked at the fake by Yun Hongxian on the ground. It was easy to imagine what he was feeling now. The 2 Daelords laughed. Hee. Didn't the real by Yun Hongxian lead the pursuers away? Why did you only realize it now? What? Is that the real by Yun Hongxian? One of the pirate leaders was shocked. What the hell are you doing? How dare you let Bai Yun Hongxian lead the pursuers away for the 2 of you? The group of pirates was shocked. Things were completely unexpected. The alliance of 7 masters was so cunning that they let Bai Yun Hongxian swagger away in front of them. Go after them. The Sea Wolf Path Master didn't even care about the 2 Daelords in front of him and ordered them to chase after them. All of a sudden, the Sea Wolf Path Master found that Xie Xiaoye had disappeared. She was still there when they were chasing after them. How could she disappear now? Forget it. Brothers, let's go after them. Boom, boom, boom. Just as they were about to turn their warships around and start to chase after them, suddenly densely packed dust-like objects appeared at the end of the void. Many pirates sucked in a breath of cold air when they took a closer look. The main force of the warships of the Alliance of 7 Masters. There were at least tens of thousands of them, which was more than 10 times the number of the Pirate Alliance. Moreover, there were not only in one direction, but in all directions. They were surrounded. At this moment, the many Daelords finally realized that Bai Yun Hongxian was bait to lure them out. Their goal was to lure all the pirates out and capture them one by one. Break out. The Sea Wolf Path Master's expression changed drastically. He was furious and ordered his warships to charge in a certain direction. The other 8 Daelords also chose a direction to break out of the encirclement and fled frantically. However, the Alliance of 7 Masters had prepared for this for a long time and made such a risky move. How could they let them escape? Countless battleships fired their cannons at the same time, shrouding the entire area in violent explosions. The 9 great pirates' warship fleet was barely able to resist, but many of the small and medium-sized pirates were blown to pieces. In the short time it took to drink a cup of tea, the small and medium-sized pirates who had wreaked havoc in the area for countless years were all captured in one fell swoop. Even the 9 great pirates' fleet was in tatters with more than half of them dead. Moreover, as the alliance of 7 masters' fleet closed in, they suffered more and more casualties. In the end, the 9 great pirate leaders abandoned the fleet they had built their entire lives and joined forces to fight their way out. After all, they were Dowlords, and 10 of them had joined forces. If they wanted to leave, no one could stop them. However, after this battle, the pirate alliance's vitality was greatly damaged. Only a tenth of them survived. It would take at least millions of years for them to recover to their current peak state. The alliance of 7 masters had won a great victory this time. On the other side, Su Yu, the Rock Path Master Biyun Hongxian, and the others finally landed safely on the meteorite fragment. It looked like the sand on the beach, stretching from the void sea to the continent. This was where the great battle with the sinful lady began. He never expected to return to this place one day. Mr. Su, do you know that the 9-colored heavenly venerable once fought with the sinful lady here? Biyun Hongxian looked at Su Yu curiously. Su Yu asked, "Who is the 9-colored heavenly venerable?" He didn't want to reveal too much. Biyun Hongxian covered her mouth and chuckled lightly. "Mr. Su, are you joking? Is there anyone who doesn't know about the 9-colored heavenly venerable? That's the pride of your human race, a sacred mortal body. She has been hunting the sinful lady for dozens of years. Everyone knows about her. How could you not have heard about her?" Su Yu said indifferently, "I was training in isolation. I don't know about it." The Rock Path Master laughed. "It's good that you don't know. If you knew that in the current primitive universe, any peerless fairy would be proud to marry the 9-colored heavenly venerable, I wonder how you would feel." As he spoke, he looked at Biyun Hongxian. He meant that Biyun Hongxian was one of them. Regarding this, Biyun Hongxian was very calm and did not avoid it. She said, "The 9-colored heavenly venerable is such a powerful being. Is it strange that I look forward to marrying him? His combat power is far superior to that of the 7 unique civilizations." Su Yu's expression was indifferent. He was not proud of it. His mortal saint body was only at the lower level and was far from reaching the mature state. There was nothing to be happy about. "Oh, then I'm ignorant. You can leave now," Su Yu said. Biyun Hongxian looked at Su Yu thoughtfully. She felt strange. Why was he not moved when he heard about the 9-colored heavenly venerable? After all, it was the sinful woman who was known as the strongest being after the stone-birth heaven's son. Hiding this doubt in her heart, Biyun Hongxian nodded. Several years later, even with the Path Master's speed, it took him 5 years to finally leave the beach and reach the shore. This was the first peerless family along the coast. There were also the 2nd, 3rd, and even the 7th peerless families. The distance was so great that it would take the Path Master about 100 years to cross it. Anyone below the Path Master could not cross it in their lifetime. At this moment they appeared in a huge city. The scale of this city was so huge that it could be compared to the entire demon realm. What was slightly strange was that there were not many men in the city. Most of them were women. Moreover, they did not seem like ordinary residents. Instead, they all had their own jobs. "Is this the city where the first peerless family is located?" Su Yu asked. Hearing this, the Rock Path Master laughed mockingly. "My little friend, it seems like you have never been to the civilization of the continent. You are still looking at our 7-star civilization from the perspective of the past. The city you see is actually just Our Lady's boudoir." Boudoir? Su Yu could not help but be stunned. A whole city of a 6-star civilization was just a boudoir? The mansion of the first peerless family is filled with 1,000 similar cities. The city is filled with servants of our family. They have a clear division of labor to maintain the city's operation. Chapter 2172. Biyun Hongxian chuckled and said, "I've let young Master Su see a joke. I originally did not want to be so extravagant, but due to my identity, I cannot do it. As the only child of the number 1 peerless family, the future successor, She was destined to have her own show, whether she liked it or not. After pausing for a moment, she said, "Young Master Su, please come with me and rest for a while. I will arrange Tian Jingchen for you." Su Yu understood the preciousness of the white dust cleansing artifact. Byun Hongxian might not necessarily carry it with her, so he followed her to a quiet house. The style of the house was elegant and fragrant. It should be for the use of women. "Young Master Su, you can treat this as my boudoir for the time being. You can rest here while I report the situation of this plan to my father. As for your assistance, I will explain in detail. This way, you should be able to apply for a grain of heaven's pure dust." Bai Yun Hongxian said. Su Yu's contribution was indispensable for her to come back alive. As his father, who had always doted on him, it wouldn't be a problem for him to ask for a grain of sky pure dust to repay Su Yu. "I'll wait for your good news," Su Yu said. After watching Byun Hongxian leave, Su Yu checked the condition of his body. Currently, he only had a strand and a half of the Daelord's energy left in his body. It was enough for him to use the Sword of Sunrise and Dusk at full power once, as well as satisfy his basic combat needs. His body, which he thought would be extremely troublesome, seemed to be able to be solved very quickly. He heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the soul space between his eyebrows. The human demon and the white bone Daelord's Tao souls were sealed within. The white bone Daelord's soul had already been destroyed to the point where it had lost its will. All that was left was the most primitive soul light. On the other hand, the demonic humans had a complete soul. Of course, being in the soul space was useless. Sensing Su Yu's arrival, the human demon shrank into a corner in fear and said, "Holy Body Su, for the sake of the fact that I have never hurt you, please give me a chance to live. I can promise you anything you want." Su Yu replied indifferently, "You can live, but you can forget about leaving this place." If he went out, it meant that even more creatures would be devoured and harmed. Although Su Yu wasn't a merciful person, he still wouldn't release a demon to harm the world. The human demon's face turned pale. "Saint Physique Su, I really don't dare to do evil anymore. If you don't believe me, I am willing to sign a master-servant contract with you and become your slave." In order to survive, the human demon was willing to do anything. Even if it was dignity. Su Yu sighed inwardly. The longer a creature lived, the more it treasured its life. An ordinary Daelord would rarely become someone else's slave just for the sake of survival. Human devils were beings that had experienced the destruction of an epoch, so they understood the value of life even better. "There's no need for a contract. Don't resist. I'll leave a mark in your body, and that will be enough to control your life and death." Su Yu gathered 8 kinds of rules in his palm and condensed them into an 8-colored petal mark, which was embellished between his brows. Although the human demon wanted to resist, he had no choice but to lower his head. "These are the seals of the 8 great magical laws of heaven and earth. Once I activate them, they will be destroyed, transforming into world-destroying power. Even if you are a god, a Tao Lord, you will be easily killed. Even sinful girls' powerful and extraordinary domain could be destroyed by the power of world extermination, let alone human devil's soul." Human demon rolled his eyes and tried to probe. He was horrified to discover an extremely terrifying destructive power. He sat on the ground with a dejected look on his face. He was really going to be controlled by Su Yu forever. Back then, when Su Yu woke him up from a deep sleep, he was just a small ant that had just entered the martial emperor realm. After so many years, he had become a prisoner. How the world had changed. "Copy your memories for me," Su Yu said. Human demon smiled bitterly, adapting to his new identity, and asked, "Which part do you want, master?" The lifetime memories of a Tao Lord were not something Su Yu could bear with his current strength. At most, he could only bear a part of them. First, about the stone-birth Son of Heaven. Second, about breaking through to the Tao Lord. Human demon was not surprised. Su Yu, who had awakened the sacred mortal body, would clash with the stone-birth son of heaven sooner or later. It was normal for him to understand his situation. At the same time, Suyu had also reached the end of the martial emperor realm. It was time to seek a breakthrough to the Tao Lord. He copied the relevant memories and gave them to Suyu. After receiving the memories, Suyu left the soul dimension and immediately began to digest the two memories. At the same time, in the center of the mansion of the number 1 peerless family, in the center of a huge city that was as vast as a 6-star civilization, in a gazebo, Bai Yun Hongxian was playing chess with a golden-eyed middle-aged man. After a while, the outcome of the game was decided. Bai Yun Hongxian was at an absolute disadvantage. "Father, your chess skills are getting better and better." Bai Yun Hongxian sighed and put down the white chess piece, indicating her surrender. The golden-eyed middle-aged man was the master of the number 1 peerless family, the golden-eyed Langjun. It was rumored that his eyes had the ability to connect the future and the past. It was very strange. Once, the number 1 peerless family and the 7th peerless family had a dispute, and the number 1 peerless family was at a disadvantage. In the end, the golden-eyed Langjun used the ability of his eyes to connect the future and the past, summoning the river of time to reverse the outcome, causing the 7th peerless family to suffer unimaginable losses. Since then, the name of the golden-eyed Langjun had spread throughout the world. "It's not that my chess skills are good, but that you have something on your mind." The golden-eyed Langjun's temperament was like dust, not revealing his sharpness, but he gave off an unfathomable feeling. Bai Yun Hongxian said calmly, "Father, you know me well. I am thinking of giving Mr. Su, who saved me, a satisfactory reward." The golden-eyed Langjun returned the black and white chess pieces to their positions calmly and said, "Oh, do you know what he wants?" "I know Tian Jingchen," Bai Yun Hongxian said. "Tian Jingchen?" The golden-eyed Langjun frowned slightly. Bai Yun Hongxian's heart tightened. "I have already promised him, in my name." "No," the golden-eyed Langjun said, "it's not that I don't want to give it. Compared to your life, a Tian Jingchen is nothing. But the Tian Jingchen is gone. Don't the family have hundreds of them in storage? How can there be no more?" Bai Yun Hongxian's heart sank. The golden-eyed Langjun said, "In the few years that you were carrying out the plan, the number 1 peerless family and the number 2 peerless family had another conflict because of the broken sky mountain. The 10 great elders and 30 great guests were all injured by the 2nd peerless family's sky shrouding light during the battle. Their bodies suffered incurable injuries. As a last resort, we had to use the Tian Jingchen to forcibly heal our injuries. So, at present, the family has no more Tian Jingchen to give." Bai Yun Hongxian covered her mouth. "How can this be?" "But I have already promised." The golden-eyed Langjun said, "Is he in urgent need of the Tian Jingchen? If he doesn't need it so urgently, we can satisfy his other wishes."